Chapter 357. When he was almost done eating, Yu Qianqiu put down his chopsticks and grabbed a white handkerchief to wipe his mouth. Ziyi looked at him and followed suit. She put down her chopsticks and grabbed the white handkerchief on the table. "Bill!" Yu Qianqiu suddenly shouted. The Wu clan's people came to their senses and looked at each other. Ziyi felt strange and asked in a low voice, "Didn't you say someone is treating us?" "Treating? In your dreams. This table of dishes costs a lot of spiritual stones. You want to treat us?" Yu Qianqiu said impatiently. He thought to himself, "This girl dares to undermine me at such a crucial time. I don't have any spiritual stones." Ziyi was like a child who had done something wrong. She then remembered that she had no money, but she ate his food. She blushed and said in a low voice, "How about you pay for me first? When I go back and see my master, I will ask him if he has any. I will pay you back then." Damn. Is this cold humor? Who said that this girl had a one-track mind? She is clearly threatening me. Do I dare to let Nongzhu know about this? I will be tortured by that guy. Yu Qianqiu's face twitched. He waved his hand and said, "Forget it. I will pay for you. You don't have to pay me back." After listening to their conversation, Wu Sihai finally understood. This girl in purple seemed to have a high cultivation, but she was as innocent as a piece of white paper. How could she resist Yu Qianqiu's tricks? However, this also indicated a problem. The violet-clothed woman's words from before were probably true. Wu Sihai shook his head and smiled bitterly. "No need to pay, no need to pay. This meal is on me." Unexpectedly, Yu Qianqiu did not appreciate it. He sneered and said, "Senior Wu, I don't object if you want to treat us. But let me make it clear first. This meal has nothing to do with the spiritual stones that your Wu clan owes me. You still have to pay me back." "Our Wu clan never said that we won't pay you back," Wu Sihai said helplessly. "That's good." Yu Qianqiu stretched out his hand and said happily, "Where are the spiritual stones? Now give it back to me." More than 60 million upper spiritual stones. How could I carry it with me all the time? Wu Sihai smiled bitterly and said, "Yu Qianqiu, this isn't a good place to talk. You should follow me back to the Wu clan first. I will definitely give you a spirit stone." "I don't dare." Yu Qianqiu scanned the Wu clan's elders in the room and snorted coldly. "Wu Jinggang tried to kill me previously and I still remember it clearly." Wu Sihai sighed and said, "It's purely a misunderstanding. Since it's already over, don't be so calculative for Schwer's sake." Snow. Wu Lishua? Why did he have to mention her out of nowhere? Yu Qianqiu looked at her suspiciously. Could it be that the adultery was exposed? Just at this moment, there was a cheerful noise coming from downstairs. Before he could see anyone, he heard a lady's crisp voice shouting, "Yu Qianqiu, is that you?" Hearing this familiar voice, Yu Qianqiu's expression changed instantly. Who else could it be if it wasn't Wu Lishua's voice? As expected, when the door was pushed open, Wu Lishua looked around with a face full of joy. She immediately saw Yu Qianqiu, who was staring at her in a daze. Just as she was about to run over, she heard a slight cough from the side. When she saw her grandfather and the elders at the side, she immediately clenched her hands and stopped talking. She stood beside Wu Sihai obediently, but her eyes were filled with tenderness when she looked at a certain someone. At the same time, when she saw that there was a beautiful lady in purple next to Yu Qianqiu, she couldn't help but have some doubts. The 4 Wu clan's elders weren't fools, and their faces were filled with doubts too. Wu Sihai coughed and spoke again. "Yu Qianqiu, we can talk about everything clearly. This isn't the place to talk. You should make a trip to my Wu clan first." Yu Qianqiu originally wanted to put on airs, but when he saw Wu Lishua's eyes that were filled with anticipation, he nodded helplessly. "Quiet guest house." Wu Sihai said that he was going to gather spirit stones, so he asked Yu Qianqiu to wait for a day. Then he arranged for Yu Qianqiu and Ziyi to stay here temporarily. Wu Lishua was rather daring. That night, she stayed in Yu Qianqiu's room and didn't leave for the whole night. Since her family already knew about the matter between her and Yu Qianqiu, she might as well not avoid it anymore. After all, a long absence makes the heart grow fonder. The next day, the man and woman who indulged themselves for the whole night only pushed open the door late in the morning. In the courtyard, the purple-clothed lady, who was already standing upright, slowly turned around and looked at the two of them suspiciously. "What were the two of you doing for the whole night? You didn't stop yelling." Wu Lishua's captivating redness immediately spread to her neck. She said in a low voice, "I'll go back first." After that, she quickly left. Yu Qianqiu immediately rolled his eyes at Ziyi and said, "You won't understand even if I tell you. You'll understand when you yell endlessly." When he said that, Ziyi was even more confused. At this moment, Wu Liqing walked in from outside the courtyard. When he saw Yu Qianqiu, he stopped on the spot with an indescribable expression. When Yu Qianqiu saw him, he was also a little embarrassed. After all, he had slept with his friend's sister. Even if he was in the right, the two of them looked at each other for a while. In the end, Wu Liqing cupped his fists and said, "Brother Yu, my grandfather invites the two of you to the ancestral hall for a discussion." As he said that, his gaze paused on Ziyi for a moment. A hint of brilliance flashed in his eyes, and his originally tense expression gradually relaxed. The three of them arrived at the Wu clan's ancestral hall in silence. When they looked around, the entire ancestral hall looked brand new. It was obvious that it had been renovated after the fire. The main culprit, Yu Qianqiu, didn't feel that anything was wrong. What made him feel strange was that the Wu clan's ancestral hall, which never allowed women to enter, actually allowed Ziyi to enter. Inside the ancestral hall there were many people. Even the 4 clan heads were there. It was obvious that they had rushed here overnight. Yu Qianqiu squinted his eyes. The 6 elders in the main hall attracted his attention. 3 of them were the 3 experts at the final stage of the tribulation passing stage that day when he burned the Wu clan's ancestral hall. Seeing that Yu Qianqiu was staring at the 6 elders, Wu Sihai, who was in charge of this place, introduced them to him. It turned out that not only did the clan heads of the 4 clans come, but they also brought an elder at the final stage of the tribulation passing stage. The 3 elders that he knew were all elders of the Wu clan. The reason why the 4 clans rushed here overnight with such a huge lineup was naturally because they had received the news from Wu Sihai. Yu Qianqiu was most likely the direct disciple of the Wu clan's ancestor. When they heard this news, all the higher-ups of the 4 clans were shocked. The elders with the highest seniority followed the clan heads and rushed here overnight to confirm it. The reason why Wu Sihai delayed Yu Qianqiu for a day was because this was not just a matter of 1 clan but 4 clans. He needed to wait for the 4 clan heads to arrive. After both parties got to know each other, Wu Sihai solemnly said to Yu Qianqiu, "Yu Qianqiu, I heard from this lady in purple yesterday that you are the direct disciple of the 4 clans' ancestor. Is what she said true?" "What do you mean, true or false?" Yu Qianqiu looked around at everyone and sneered, "You asked me to wait for you to gather spirit stones. I have already waited for a day. Where are my spirit stones? Not only did you blame me last time, you even tried to kill me to silence me. Do you want to do it again today?" The atmosphere in the ancestral hall suddenly became a little awkward. Wu Sihai coughed and said, "Yu Qianqiu, I will definitely give you spirit stones. It's just that there are some things I want to clarify with you." Damn it. He would only be at ease if he got the money. What happened last time would not happen again. Yu Qianqiu did not care so much. He spread out his hand and said, "If you have anything to say, give me the money first." Ziyi's pretty face was also tense. She took a step forward and stood next to Yu Qianqiu. Because Yu Qianqiu said that the problem of money was related to Elder Bai's great trust, she now thought that gathering money was also part of her responsibility. Naturally, she had to support Yu Qianqiu. The 6 elders' eyes fell on Ziyi and their pupils shrank. Wu Zhen, the oldest elder in the Wu clan, suddenly said, "Sihai, how many spirit stones do we owe him?" Wu Sihai turned around and bowed, 68 million superior grade spirit stones. Wu Zhen said without hesitation, "Give him 70 million now." Soon someone came with a storage bag. Wu Sihai handed the storage bag to Yu Qianqiu and said, "Check it." In fact, it did not need to be so troublesome. Yu Qianqiu roughly scanned the storage bag with his divine sense and knew that it was almost the same. After putting the storage bag away, he looked at the crowd and suddenly sighed, "It's not that I care about the spirit stones. It's just that I have a heavy responsibility and I need a lot of spirit stones." "I'm sorry, everyone." Wu Sihai asked, "I've given you the spirit stones. Can you answer my question now?" "Sigh. Why are you so obsessed? Do you know what it means to you?" Yu Qianqiu smiled bitterly and said, "I don't want to tell you some things because I don't want to implicate you. Otherwise, I'm afraid I won't be able to explain it to my master when I go back." Although he did not give a direct answer, the meaning of his words was very obvious. In the ancestral hall, everyone looked at Yu Qianqiu with a hint of respect. Wu Sihai asked, "So, you admit that you're the great ancestor's personal disciple?" Yu Qianqiu was shaking his head and sighing. He was about to answer when he saw someone running in quickly and reporting to Wu Sihai, "Master, Daluo sect Master Luo Qingtian has personally come to Hat Island and wants to see the master. He wants to see Yu Qianqiu by name." Everyone's eyes turned to Yu Qianqiu. Daluo sect was the second-ranked sect in the Wuxia cultivation world. Its sect Master Luo Qingtian had a high status. Now that he had come in person, it was probably not to see the Wu clan's master, but to settle the grudge between him and Yu Qianqiu. At this time, 2 more people ran in from outside and reported to Wu Sihai, supporting Immortal Island's elder Dongfang Changgao seeks an audience with Patriarch, and Myriad Demons Temple's elder Qiu Wuyuan seeks an audience with Patriarch. Chapter 358. The ancestral shrine suddenly quieted down. Everyone looked at each other with a puzzled expression. 3 powerful figures from the cultivation world had come down. It was still reasonable for Luo Qingtian to come here at this time, but why did Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan come here to join in the fun? Everyone looked at Yu Qianqiu. Could it be that this guy had formed an irreconcilable enmity with the number 1 sect of the righteous and devil sects? Wu Sihai looked at Yu Qianqiu speechlessly. His idea that had been proven many times had been verified again. This kid really had problems wherever he went. Needless to say, Luo Qingtian represented the Daluo sect, and Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan were definitely the representatives of the righteous and devil sects. Whenever the 2 sects wanted to deal with something in the cultivation world, the 2 of them would usually be the representatives. The 3 powerful figures came here when Yu Qianqiu just showed up. It would be strange if they didn't come for this guy. Yu Qianqiu, who was at the side, raised his brows and sneered without saying a word. He didn't care about the other 2, but Luo Qingtian was definitely here for him. The patriarchs of the 4 major families and the 6 elders exchanged glances and nodded as if they had made a decision. Wu Sihai walked to Yu Qianqiu's side and said in a deep voice, "The Daluo sect master wants to see you. I'm afraid that Daluo sect's experts have already been set up around the Wu clan. It won't be easy for you to leave the Wu clan smoothly. If you nod and confirm that you are the direct disciple of the old ancestor, the 4 major families will protect you even if we have to fall out with the Daluo sect." "No need." Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly, and a disdainful aura suddenly burst out. He looked around and said coldly, "A mere Daluo sect master doesn't need to use my master's name to protect his life. Let's go and meet that Luo Qingtian." His words were filled with arrogance, especially when coupled with his imposing manner. It was as if he was a completely different person. Ziyi had always revered Bai Changchun, not to mention that even her own master felt inferior to him. In her heart, there was no one who could be on par with Bai Changchun. Now that she heard Yu Qianqiu's words, her pretty face immediately turned frosty. How could a mere sect leader be mentioned in the same breath as Elder Bai? She immediately followed Yu Qianqiu out of the ancestral shrine. Everyone in the ancestral hall fell silent. Wu Zhen exchanged a look with the other elders and sighed, "The 4 families were founded by our great ancestor. How can we sit back and watch our great ancestor's direct disciple get into trouble? We old guys are here to watch. You 4 represent the 4 families to protect him." The 4 clan heads accepted the order and followed out. At the same time, 10 Wu clan elders also nodded and followed. The Wu clan's residence was only separated by a river from Hat Island. Yu Qianqiu and Ziyi walked to the top of the arch bridge. Looking around, there were already many people gathered on the other side of the bridge to watch the show. However, there was a large empty space near the bridge with only a few people standing there. The people who stood on both sides like enemies were naturally Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan. Between the 2 of them, there was a person with his back facing the river bridge. He was burly and wore a black robe. Beside him stood 2 guards respectfully. Yi Haiping also stood at the side with his hands folded. Could that person be the Daluo sect leader Luo Qingtian? Yu Qianqiu squinted his eyes and stared at that person. "Yu Qianqiu is here." Someone shouted, and the surrounding crowd immediately became restless. The person in the black robe turned around abruptly and happened to meet Yu Qianqiu's gaze from afar. At this time, the 4 clan heads behind the 2 of them led the 10 Wu clan elders to pass them and walk towards the people at the bridge. Both sides immediately exchanged greetings. "Later, if we fight, we can't let our master's reputation down," Yu Qianqiu said softly to Ziyi, who was beside him. He didn't forget to add, "My master always kills when he can. He won't let a single one of them go." Ziyi nodded with a firm gaze. Yu Qianqiu could be considered to have grasped her pulse. Everything was related to Bai Changchun, and he guaranteed that she would listen to him obediently. This girl was Bai Changchun's hardcore fan. When the 2 of them walked to the bridge, they saw Qiu Wuyuan walking towards them. He laughed loudly and said, "Brother Yu, long time no see." "Senior Qiu." Yu Qianqiu walked over and cupped his hands in greeting enthusiastically. Qiu Wuyuan saw Ziyi beside him and was stunned. He said, "Could she be brother's confidant?" "No." Ziyi denied it coldly. Qiu Wuyuan wanted to make fun of them, but when he saw that Ziyi's cultivation was higher than his joke got stuck in his throat. He was just a little curious. How come he had never seen a woman with such cultivation before? "Senior, why are you here?" Yu Qianqiu asked. "Nothing." Qiu Weiyuan turned his head and looked at Luo Qingtian and Dongfang Chang'eo with a smile. He said, "First of all, I'm here to watch the show. Secondly, I heard that brother appeared in the Wu clan, so I came here to ask if brother is interested in joining my 10,000 demons?" As soon as he said this, Luo Qingtian's gaze collided with Qiu Weiyuan's. The former stopped his conversation with the four major clans' patriarchs and walked over slowly. He looked at Yu Qianqiu and asked, "You are Yu Qianqiu?" Luo Qingtian was a strong old man with dark hair and two slanted snow-white eyebrows. His eyes were cold and steady, and he exuded the aura of a superior. Yu Qianqiu looked at him and replied indifferently, "Yes, I am." "May I know why Sect Master Luo wants to see me?" "Yu Qianqiu, do you think you can pretend to be ignorant today?" Luo Qingtian shouted in a deep voice. A faint tyrannical aura was emitted from his body, and it seemed like he would make a move at any time. At this moment, the four patriarchs exchanged glances and walked over together. They stood behind Yu Qianqiu and the atmosphere was self-evident. The surrounding crowd was in an uproar again. The four major clans were showing their attitude to stand on Yu Qianqiu's side. Didn't that mean that they were going to be enemies with the Daluo sect? Qiu Weiyuan, who was smiling silently at the side, had his eyes lit up. He chuckled and said, "Interesting." He moved his feet and actually stood side by side with the four patriarchs. It was normal for evil Dao and righteous Dao to go against each other. Luo Qingtian ignored Qiu Weiyuan and glanced at the four patriarchs coldly. He said in a deep voice, "Are the four major clans going to be enemies with the Daluo sect? We don't dare." Wu Sihai cupped his fists and said, "Yu Qianqiu is a guest invited by the four major clans. The four major clans will not let anything happen to the guest in our territory." It was very clear that the four major clans were going to protect Yu Qianqiu today, even if it meant going against the Daluo sect. Luo Qingtian's snow-white brows pricked up, and the atmosphere instantly became tense. Dongfang Chang'eo walked over and said, "China's cultivation world is in a crisis now, and it is time for us to defend against external enemies together. All the sects must not have internal strife. I will represent supporting Immortal Island to advise everyone to discuss this." Luo Qingtian turned back and took a glance before saying coldly, "Could Elder Dongfang be stopping me from taking revenge for my son?" Dongfang Chang'eo waved his hand and said, "Sect Master Luo is mistaken. I heard that Sect Master Luo is going to visit the Wu clan personally, so I was immediately sent here. Before I came, my supporting Immortal Island Sect Master had instructed me repeatedly that if it is a personal grudge, supporting Immortal Island will not interfere. However, if it involves a battle between sects, the impact will be too great, and my supporting Immortal Island will have to interfere." Dongfang Chang'eo, are you using supporting Immortal Island to pressure me? Do you really think that I am afraid of your supporting Immortal Island? Luo Qingtian shouted in a deep voice. "Sect Master Luo, please don't misunderstand. It is just that the cultivation world is in a crisis now and you should be clearer than me. At this moment we really should not expand our personal grudges. I hope that Sect Master Luo will reconsider." Dongfang Chang'eo persuaded. "Alright." Luo Qingtian suddenly pointed at Yu Qianqiu and shouted, "I will abandon my position as Sect Master and settle my personal grudge with him. Will he agree?" Dongfang Chang'eo frowned slightly and looked at Yu Qianqiu. "Yu Qianqiu, what do you think?" Before Yu Qianqiu could reply, Ziyi took a step forward with a cold expression and spoke to Luo Qingtian coldly, "You are the Daluo sect master? Are you tired of living?" A young woman actually dared to speak to the Daluo sect master in such a manner. Everyone was shocked, and when they realized that they couldn't see through Ziyi's cultivation, they were all speechless. "Ziyi, come back." Yu Qianqiu gently pulled Ziyi's arm and said with a faint smile, "Since someone pointed at my nose and challenged me to a duel, how can I retreat? Let me meet the world-renowned Daluo sect master." Chapter 359. As soon as he said that, the surrounding people were in an uproar. Yu Qianqiu actually agreed to fight with Luo Qingtian, the sect master of Daluo sect. Did Yu Qianqiu really think that his cultivation could compete with Luo Qingtian, who was in the middle stage of passing calamity? Everyone was shocked and felt that this was a joke. They were laughing at Yu Qianqiu for overestimating himself. They were laughing at Yu Qianqiu for being a madman. Ziyi obediently retreated, and there was a faint look of excitement on her face. She had never seen Bai Changchun, whom she admired, in action, but seeing the disciple of the world's #1 expert in action was enough to satisfy her curiosity. She was looking forward to it very much. Dongfang Chang'ao frowned. Yu Qianqiu, the disciple who was expelled from supporting Xian Island, was loved and hated by everyone in supporting Xian Island. It seemed that they loved him more because he did not do anything excessive to supporting Xian Island. He was even appreciated by the older generation of supporting Xian Island. At a young age, he made a big name for himself in the cultivation world. To be honest, the people of supporting Xian Island were proud of him, and the disciples of the younger generation even idolized him. With such a talented and outstanding disciple, he was already included in the list of disciples that the supporting Immortal Island would focus on nurturing. It was believed that in a few years, the supporting Immortal Island would have a resounding figure in the cultivation world and add glory to the island. However, because of the Azure Light sect that had already been destroyed, Yu Qianqiu, who contradicted the sect master, was expelled from the sect by Feng Xiangtian in a fit of anger. After this incident, many people in supporting Xian Island felt that it was a pity. However, in order to maintain the prestige of the sect master, no one mentioned this matter again. However, after the extermination of the Azure Light sect, Yu Qianqiu used his self-created Star Flame Fire technique outside the 100 Flowers Valley to make a name for himself in the cultivation world. This matter caused a stir in the supporting Immortal Island. The entire supporting Immortal Island was talking about it. Many people began to mention Yu Qianqiu again. Some even suggested to recall Yu Qianqiu back to the supporting Immortal Island. These people's reason was that Yu Qianqiu was expelled by An Kuangtsung. Now that An Kuangtsung was dead, no one would pursue the past, so it was possible to recall Yu Qianqiu back to supporting Xian Island. For this matter, Ma Jiugu personally went to Feng Xiangtian to plead for leniency. Ma Jiugu said, "It's true that Yu Qianqiu was in the wrong, but now that An Kuangtsung is dead, and his exposure of the father and son of the Yen clan contributed to supporting Xian Island, it can be seen that he still has supporting Xian Island in his heart. At the same time, his exposure also contributed to the entire cultivation world. This is the most suitable excuse to recall Yu Qianqiu back to supporting Xian Island." However, Feng Xiangtian was worried that Yu Qianqiu had killed the Daluo sect master's son and a group of disciples outside the 100 Flowers Valley. In the end, Ma Jiugu said bluntly, "Many people in the cultivation world witnessed what happened. It was clearly Daluo sect who provoked Yu Qianqiu first. Moreover, both sides agreed not to pursue the other side's responsibility afterward. Moreover, Yu Qianqiu relied on his low cultivation and outnumbered them. Daluo sect has nothing to say about this. If it weren't for Yu Qianqiu being alone in the cultivation world, Daluo sect wouldn't have broken their promise to retaliate." Ma Jiugu also said, "If Daluo sect really doesn't let this matter go, I will personally go to Daluo sect and reason with those old guys. I don't believe that Luo Qingtian can cover the sky with one hand in Daluo sect." After the conversation, Feng Xiangtian didn't agree because of his reputation, but Ma Jiugu promised him that she would think of a way to make Yu Qianqiu's return not tarnish the sect master's reputation, so Feng Xiangtian acquiesced. However, while supporting Immortal Island was searching for Yu Qianqiu seemed to have disappeared from the cultivation world. Some people even speculated that Daluo sect might have secretly found Yu Qianqiu and killed him. If Daluo sect did this openly, they would be suspected of breaking their promise. Although most people wouldn't say it, the truth was the truth. Because of Yu Qianqiu's disappearance, this matter was almost forgotten by everyone. However, just yesterday news suddenly came from Hat Island that Yu Qianqiu had made an appearance and was personally brought to the Wu clan by the clan leader. This news quickly spread throughout the entire supporting Immortal Island. As a result, supporting Immortal Island's most senior consecrator Ma Jiugu, the former sect master Guan Dinghai, the Cultivation Pavilion's principal elder O Sihai, the Alchemy Pavilion's principal elder Guan Weiwu, the Myriad Fragrance Garden's principal elder Ferdinand, and the others all went to find the sect master. At that time, Feng Xiangtian was telling Dongfang Chang'ao some things. When such a group of people suddenly came to find them, the two of them were shocked. They didn't expect that Yu Qianqiu, who had left supporting Immortal Island for many years, would have such a great influence on the island. Feng Xiangtian didn't say anything. This was something he had tacitly agreed to in the past. Moreover, after Yu Qianqiu returned to supporting Immortal Island, even if he didn't contribute his own mysterious fire art, it would still become a product of supporting Immortal Island. This was also a great merit for him as the sect master. As a result, he immediately ordered Dongfang Chang'ao to carry out this matter. At the same time, Feng Xiangtian immediately thought that the Daluo sect might also make a move. He carefully warned Dongfang Chang'eo and told him to act according to the circumstances. Before Dongfang Chang'eo left, he asked the others, "If Yu Qianqiu doesn't want to return to supporting Immortal Island, what should I do?" The others immediately fell silent. From the beginning to the end, it was supporting Immortal Island's wishful thinking. They never considered Yu Qianqiu's thoughts. In their minds, supporting Immortal Island was the #1 sect in the world. Who didn't want to attach themselves to it? How could they refuse it? However, Yu Qianqiu always did things his own way and often did things that were out of line. It wasn't like they hadn't seen it before. What if he didn't want to return? They couldn't just kidnap him. What was the point of that? After a moment of silence, Ma Jiugu suddenly smiled. She seemed to have thought of a solution. The others revealed inquiring expressions. Ma Jiugu smiled and said, "Back then I could see that this boy was different from ordinary people, so I showed him some kindness. In return he owed me a promise. I originally had another use for this promise, but now it seems that I might have to use it on him. Changgao, try to persuade him to return. If he doesn't come back, ask him if he still remembers the promise he made to me. Tell him that I want him to come to supporting Immortal Island and fulfill the promise he made to me in the past. Since there was such a thing, it would be easy to handle." Dongfang Chang'eo received the order and rushed here overnight. However, what happened in front of him was beyond his expectation. He said those polite words to buy some time for Yu Qianqiu. As long as Yu Qianqiu agreed to return to supporting Immortal Island, he would have a way to bring Yu Qianqiu back to supporting Immortal Island. After all, the strength of the world's #1 sect wasn't just for show. Once Yu Qianqiu went to supporting Immortal Island and confirmed his identity as a disciple of supporting Immortal Island, Ma Jiugu, who had made a guarantee, would naturally come forward to deal with the following matters. Presumably she would have a way to restrict Luo Qingtian. But who knew that when Luo Qingtian issued a challenge, Yu Qianqiu actually agreed to it without any hesitation. Dongfang Chang'eo was suffering in silence. He had just said in the name of supporting Immortal Island that he wouldn't intervene in their personal grievances. He couldn't slap supporting Immortal Island's face in front of so many people, right? But if he didn't intervene, how was he going to explain to the people in his sect when he returned? Now that things had come to this, he could only choose an opportunity to act. Dongfang Chang'eo stepped back speechlessly. Qiu Weiyuan smacked his lips and really didn't know what to say. In fact, he was also appointed by the 10,000 demons to deal with Yu Qianqiu, but his idea was quite different from that of supporting Immortal Island. They were interested in Yu Qianqiu's mysterious fire art that could kill people of a higher level. As long as they recruited Yu Qianqiu into the 10,000 demons, there was no need to worry that they wouldn't be able to get something out of him. However, as Dongfang Chang'eo said, now was the time for internal strife when there were foreign enemies invading. What's more, in order to deal with the foreign enemies, the orthodox and devil sects of the entire cultivation world had put aside their prejudices and temporarily formed an alliance. Now, the Cultivation Alliance was not only made up of the orthodox sects, but also the devil sections. The current situation was that no matter how much hatred they had in the past, they had to let it all go now. Anything else could wait until the foreign enemies were defeated. At that time, no matter what they wanted to do, they wouldn't violate the taboo of the Chinese cultivation world. In secular terms, it was the national righteousness. This was something that no one could afford to offend, regardless of whether it was the orthodox or the devil. Luo Qingtian first provoked the 4 major families in the name of the Daluo sect. Under the current situation in the cultivation world, it was definitely related to violating the taboo of everyone. Qiu Weiyuan immediately stood on the side of the 4 major families without hesitation and took the opportunity to support Yu Qianqiu. Who knew that once Dongfang Chang'eo intervened, the little lunatic Yu Qianqiu actually gave up the protection of the 4 major families and wanted to fight one-on-one with Luo Qingtian. Did he really think that Luo Qingtian was as easy to scare as Zhu Xianxian? Wasn't he courting death? In this way, not to mention Dongfang Chang'eo, even Qiu Weiyuan couldn't intervene anymore. The masters of other sects all followed the rules, so there was no reason for him, Qiu Weiyuan, to intervene at this time. Chapter 360. Brother Yu, you have to think it through, Qiu Weiyuan said reluctantly, but he kept signaling the 4 family heads with his eyes. The 4 family heads, who were stunned, immediately came to their senses and said in unison, "No." Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and said indifferently, "It's nothing. The grudge between me and Daluo sect will come to an end sooner or later. Today is just the beginning. If the 4 family heads really agree with my identity, then don't stop me and step back." See. Hearing the call, Zi immediately understood Yu Qianzhou's intention. Her delicate body stood between him and the four family heads, her pretty face expressionless. Yu Qianzhou, if something happens to you, how are we going to explain it to the elders? How are we going to? Wu Sihai was a little anxious and almost said the great ancestor. Although he didn't say it out loud, the eyes of the people around him flickered. They were all secretly guessing just what kind of identity did Yu Qianzhou have for the four great clans to be willing to fall out with the Daluo sect just to protect him. Luo Qingtian was stunned for a while. He said those words out of anger. He didn't expect Yu Qianzhou to really agree. It was really surprising. At this moment, he came back to his senses and glanced at the four family heads coldly. He snorted and said, although the Chinese cultivation world is being eyed by foreign enemies, if you four family heads provoke Daluo sect first, then don't blame us for not following the rules. He waved to the surrounding crowd and said, my friends from the cultivation world, please bear witness. The surrounding cultivators immediately responded in unison. Luo Qingtian's status in the cultivation world was quite high. It was difficult for ordinary cultivators to even see him. Now they actually got to see him fight. Moreover, his opponent was the scum of the cultivation world, Yu Qianzhou. It was really a show to watch. As for Yu Qianzhou's twisted name, no one knew if he had done something shameless or if someone was jealous of his reputation. No one knew when it started to spread. In any case, even if it didn't fit the facts, everyone still called him that. The four great clan heads frowned deeply as they exchanged glances. They were still hesitant. Yu Qianzhou stared at Luo Qingtian and said faintly, this is a personal matter between me and the Daluo sect. It has nothing to do with the four major families. Zi, please step aside. Zi stared at the four of them expressionlessly. Since it had come to this, the four of them had nothing to say. They shook their heads helplessly and moved to the side. Wu Sihai gave a few instructions to a Wu clan elder, and that elder quickly returned to the Wu clan. He was probably going back to report. The fight was about to begin. Those who were too close didn't want to be affected, but they also didn't want to miss the excitement, so they all squeezed to the back. After all, Luo Qingtian's cultivation was profound, and he might be provoked by the aftershock of the fight. Moreover, Yu Qianzhou's star flame fire technique wasn't easy to deal with. However, everyone didn't want to retreat too far away so that they couldn't see clearly, so many people simply flew to the roof to watch. The huge area was quickly emptied to the two of them. Only Dongfang Chang'ao and a few others who were confident in their cultivation and weren't afraid of being affected didn't retreat too far. Yu Qianzhou and Luo Qingtian looked at each other, and a storm was brewing. After waiting for a while, Luo Qingtian's eyes actually showed a hint of appreciation to Yu Qianzhou. He couldn't see any panic or fear from Yu Qianzhou. Among the younger generation, there were very few people who dared to face him like this. Just this courage alone was not something ordinary people could compare with. He didn't know that ever since Yu Qianzhou followed Bai Changchun, his vision was no longer the same as before. After staying with people at Bai Changchun's level for a long time, he didn't even care about the Demon King and the Ghost King, who were equivalent to the final stage of the passing calamity stage. How could he take a middle stage of the passing calamity stage seriously, let alone be afraid of him? At this moment, Luo Qingtian suddenly said, Yu Qianzhou, you really live up to your reputation. You are a courageous person, but I don't understand. Why do you repeatedly go against my Daluo sect and even kill my only son? Sect leader Luo must have made a mistake. It's not that I, Yu Qianzhou, repeatedly go against your Daluo sect. It's that your Daluo sect has repeatedly bullied others because of your great power, Yu Qianzhou replied coldly. Luo Qingtian raised his white eyebrows and said rather conceitedly, I am confident that I have strict restrictions on my disciples. How can you say that I am bullying others? Strict restrictions? What a joke. Yu Qianzhou sneered. When I first entered the cultivation world, my master, Ong Kwangtsung, happened to obtain a spiritual herb called the rainbow lingji mushroom. Unfortunately, he ran into someone from your Daluo sect. In the end, not only did your disciple snatch the spiritual herb, but he also didn't let his master go. Once my master died, I ended up wandering around. Is this what you mean by strict restrictions? Secondly, you did not teach your son well and allowed him to cause trouble. Your son, Luo Xiaohan, actually forced Yu Qianzhou's woman to drink with him in public. Do you think I should teach him a lesson? How can you say that I am going against your Daluo sect? In the 100 Flowers Valley, your son repeatedly provoked me and forced me to fight him. That's why I killed him. Do you want me to let him kill me? I'm not making things up. Many people have seen it with their own eyes. Why is it that you, sect leader Luo, say that I am going against your Daluo sect time and time again? If I ran into one incident, it could be said that it was a coincidence, but I ran into them one after another. Could it be that the Luo sect is as strict as sect Master Luo said? When it came to reasoning, Yu Qianshou's mouth had never been afraid of anyone. As soon as he opened his mouth, he listed out the exalted sect's crimes in front of everyone in the cultivation world. It was as if he had been persecuted by the exalted sect. When Ziyi looked at Yu Qianshou, her beautiful lips moved. She thought to herself, it turns out that master doesn't know everything. Maybe there are other secrets to the other incidents. Hearing this, Luo Qingtian's white eyebrows trembled slightly. He turned around to look at Yi Haiping and the other Daluo sect disciples with a sharp gaze. Those people's eyes were dodging his gaze in fear. It seemed that there were secrets in what Yu Qianshou said that even Luo Qingtian, the sect leader, didn't know. It's meaningless to say more. I will avenge my son's death. Luo Qingtian turned around and said after a pause, in order to prevent people from saying that I'm a bully, I'll let you have 3 moves first. If you can withstand 100 moves from me and stay alive, I promise that the grudge between you and Daluo sect will be written off. Daluo sect and I will not cause any trouble for you in the future. Do you think that's fair? Dongfang Changgao and Qiu Wuyuan's eyebrows twitched. In their opinion, although it was almost impossible for Yu Qianshou to last more than 100 moves against Luo Qingtian had more or less given Yu Qianshou a way out. It was not certain that Yu Qianshou would not stop until he was dead. It seemed like Yu Qianshou's words were effective. The crowd began to discuss among themselves. Even if you don't cause trouble for me, I'll still cause trouble for Daluo sect sooner or later. Yu Qianshou said indifferently, since it's to end the grudge, there's no such thing as fairness or unfairness. I, Yu Qianshou, will not appreciate sect leader Luo's kindness. You make the first move. After 3 moves, I won't show mercy. Luo Qingtian's white eyebrows relaxed and he said loudly, let me experience Yu Qianshou's star flame fire technique. I won't let you down. Yu Qianshou snorted coldly. He turned around and walked toward the bridge. As he walked, he said, it's better for us to end our grudge on this 100-meter-long river, lest the shops nearby suffer. The river was 100 meters wide and the bridge was also 100 meters long. The water flowed slowly under the bridge. Just as Yu Qianshou walked to the center of the arch bridge, he suddenly heard the sound of wind breaking. He quickly turned around and saw Luo Qingtian shooting over like a phantom. In an instant he stood 2 to 3 meters away. Yu Qianshou was slightly surprised. What a fast speed. It was almost as fast as teleportation. His sharp eyes under his white eyebrows were overflowing with battle intent. Luo Qingtian said in a deep voice, let's do it. The surrounding gazes immediately focused on the bridge. Many people saw the 2 of them on the bridge, so they crowded to the bridgehead to watch. Yu Qianshou didn't hold back. He swung his sleeves toward the sky, and hundreds of green flying swords shot out from his sleeves. They circled around him. Luo Qingtian's eyes flashed. What a strange flying sword. What a beautiful sword technique. Before he finished speaking, dozens of flying swords turned into green lights and shot over at lightning speed. Luo Qingtian shouted, 1 move. He turned into a shadow and flew up from the bridge, barely avoiding the flying sword that was shot at him. Yu Qianshou made a hand seal and the flying swords quickly turned back. They merged with all the other flying swords and shot into the sky, chasing after Luo Qingtian. A shout came from the sky. 2 moves. Luo Qingtian, who was soaring up, suddenly changed his direction and shot out horizontally. A group of green shadows brushed past him. The onlookers exclaimed. While flying at such a high speed, he didn't stop and suddenly changed his direction. Moreover, he didn't slow down at all. He really deserved to be the famous Daluo sect leader. His cultivation was indeed extraordinary. Even Qiu Wuyuan couldn't help but praise, Luo Qingtian, you're really good. Damn it. Even the flying swords couldn't catch up with him. This old guy's speed was too abnormal. Yu Qianshou narrowed his eyes. They were both in the middle stage of tribulation passing, but the difference between He Li and Luo Qingtian wasn't just a little bit. At least He Li didn't have this ability. He made a hand seal and the hundreds of flying swords in the sky turned into pillars. Like flying dragons in the sky, they chased after Luo Qingtian. 3 moves. Luo Qingtian shouted in the sky and his body suddenly fell down. He dodged the flying swords as fast as a meteor and shot towards Yu Qianshou in the middle of the bridge. 3 moves were over and it was time for Luo Qingtian to make his move. The onlookers below immediately worried for Yu Qianshou. As the figure whistled over, Yu Qianshou opened his arms. Green flames suddenly burst out and instantly spread to both ends of the bridge. The sudden high temperature almost instantly turned the 100-meter-long bridge into ashes. The two onlookers who were closer to the bridge were shocked on the spot, and they quickly escaped from the bridgehead. The horrifying high temperature was simply terrifying. Two green flames flashed in Yu Qianzhou's eyes. He raised his head and slapped his palm towards Luo Qingtian. A thick green fire dragon welcomed the oncoming person. Luo Qingtian, who was attacking downwards, was also shocked. He had never seen green flames before. Before he arrived, he could already feel the soul-stirring high temperature. A white protective upstanding chi burst out from his body in an instant, enveloping his whole body as he dove straight into the green flames that were coming at him. The onlookers below were dumbfounded as they waited for the result. Who knew that Luo Qingtian, who had just rushed into the green flames, would turn around and fly back in the blink of an eye? He flew directly into the sky. Ziyi, who was below, suddenly smiled sweetly. She thought to herself, this person definitely doesn't know how powerful Yu Qianzhou's green flames are. I'm sure he'll suffer a loss. Even I, who has the cultivation of the late stage of tribulation passing, can't bear it. How can a mere middle stage of tribulation passing be able to bear it? Chapter 361. As soon as Luo Qingtian flew into the air, he immediately felt that something was wrong. When he heard a group of sharp whistles above his head, he immediately thought of the group of flying swords in the air and looked up. The green flying swords originally stopped in the air. At this time, the green shadows poured down and finally seized the opportunity to vent their shame. They shot toward Luo Qingtian, who was in the protective aura like a storm. Such a thrilling attack scene made a lot of people below worry for Luo Qingtian. With the protective aura on his body, he definitely couldn't escape as fast as before. Bang! Luo Qingtian's shout suddenly sounded in the air, followed by a loud bang in the air, like a thunderbolt. The white stellar energy on his body suddenly exploded, and the hundreds of green flying swords that were hurtling towards him were instantly blown into pieces and scattered everywhere. Extraordinary. Even the flying sword could not catch up to him, so how were they watching the battle below were in a commotion? He could only resort to trickery. Everyone couldn't understand. Unexpectedly, could it be that Luo Qingtian's protective aura couldn't block the attack of Yu Qianzhou's flying protective upstanding? He had to use a method that consumed a lot of chi, self-destructing. His plan was immediately ruined. They didn't know that Luo Qingtian didn't know that the reason why Luo Qingtian could withstand Yu Qianzhou's green fire. The opportunity when he rushed into the sea of fire, without the burden of the aura shield, he found that it was not what he thought. The flying sword would definitely not be able to catch up with so high that it almost broke his scattered azure flying swords quickly returned from the sky and circled around with such a terrifying flame. Luo Qingtian was afraid that once his protective aura was broken for the time being, his body would definitely suffer a disaster. He stared at the scene below with a gloomy expression. His reaction was very fast. His mind was still thinking when he felt that something was wrong, he immediately flew back. He didn't expect that after he let the high temperature attached to the protective aura was difficult to disperse. The bridge was destroyed, and Yu Qianzhou immediately landed on the water surface. Back into his body. He stood on the waves, not sinking. He could only wait for it to slowly cool down. He squinted his eyes, but it was so hot that he trembled slightly. A raging green flame wrapped around his body, couldn't see it, rendering the river surface rippling. At this time, Yu Qianzhou's on the water surface and faced the Luo Qingtian, who was suffering in the steamer, who was famous all over the world. Self-destructed. The green fireman on the water surface was like a bright to resist the flying swords to relieve his pain. The sudden occurrence of such a strange event by confusing a lot of the people present. This explosion really lost a lot of chi. And Qiu Yuan looked at each other at the same time, and there was a hint of shock in their eyes. Initially, he wanted to wait for the green flame flying swords to come a little closer. Had only exchanged then he would immediately explode, and the former seemed to have swords into a sea of green flames that filled the sky. The four family masters were also at the tribulation stage, so they naturally saw the clues. Even if he couldn't kill Yu Qianzhou, they looked at each other and sighed in their hearts. Yu Qianzhou into the direct disciple of the ancestor was indeed extraordinary. No wonder he had the confidence to challenge the Luo sect's sect master alone. This is the Starflame Fire technique? Luo Qingtian's voice came from the sky. Yes. Yu Qianzhou replied firmly and proudly. Do you dare to come up and fight? Luo Qingtian's voice came again. Yu Qianzhou, who was in the blue fire, shook his head and said loudly, Sect Master Luo, you think too highly of me, Yu Qianzhou. Whether it is cultivation or speed, I am far inferior to you. If I come up to the sky, I will only be beaten. It is better for me to stay on the ground and deal with the changes. Luo Qingtian was silent for a while, then he nodded and said, Again. Then he swooped down and shouted, De Luo mountain splitting palm. A gust of wind blew in the sky. As Luo Qingtian swooped down and struck with his palm, a huge shadow of a palm with a radius of tens of meters appeared in the sky and covered the river. Before the shadow of the palm arrived, Yu Qianzhou immediately felt a strong pressure. The entire river was slightly dented. Even if he released the blue fire to resist, it would be forced away by such a strong pressure. It couldn't hurt Luo Qingtian at all. He squinted his eyes, and the flying sword that was circling around his body rushed into the blue fire. Along with the blue fire, it quickly disappeared without a trace. The river under his feet suddenly split open. Yu Qianqiu suddenly dove into the water and disappeared instantly. The pressure and momentum descended at the same time. The huge shadow of the palm then hit the water where Yu Qianqiu was standing just now. With a loud bang, a huge wave exploded in the river, accompanied by a strong airflow that spread in all directions. Many people who were watching the battle at the side quickly escaped, but there were also many people whose cultivation was too low. They couldn't escape in time and were suddenly washed away by the sudden flood. This was the price of watching a show. Many shops near the river were immediately destroyed. When the water passed, there were fish jumping everywhere on the ground. Of course, cultivators like Dongfang Zhangao immediately released their protective upstanding qi, which acted like a pillar in the middle of a raging river, withstanding the sudden attack of the flood. Luo Qingtian stopped at a low altitude. His sharp eyes under his white eyebrows were like torches, and he quickly looked down. The power of his palm instantly made a section of the river dozens of meters deep to see the bottom, and then the water violently converged and flowed again. This moment was enough for him to see the situation below clearly, but there was no Yu Qianqiu under the water. No one knew where he was hiding. After waiting for a while, Yu Qianqiu still didn't come out. Several people who stayed on the shore suddenly showed some suspicious expressions. Yu Qianqiu chose to fight in the river. Could it be that he was good at swimming and had already prepared to escape? Only Ziyi looked at the river calmly. She didn't believe that Elder Bai's disciple would be so useless that he would run away in fear before suffering a loss. Luo Qingtian, who was low in the air, seemed to be impatient. He suddenly descended and stepped on the water. He released his divine sense and went deep into the river to check around. His action of descending to the river was probably to lure Yu Qianqiu out. In fact, when Yu Qianqiu saw the incoming palm, he knew that he couldn't resist it with his cultivation, so he simply dived into the river and used the water spell to quickly escape far away to avoid the disaster. This was why he chose to fight on the river. With this big river as his backing, he who had cultivated the water arts could quickly escape in the water at any time. This was a method he had comprehended in the 1,000-mile lake. Who could be faster than him in the water? It was truly one of the best methods for escaping for his life. But escaping was escaping, not escaping. After the power of the palm, he quickly escaped back. Luo Qingtian's divine sense went back and forth on him a few times, but he couldn't find him. It could be seen that the mystery of the water spell had already made him one with the river water. It would be difficult for Luo Qingtian to find him with his current cultivation. The people on the river continued to look for him. Yu Qianqiu, who was under the river, was frowning and thinking. It was too dangerous to go out and fight, and it was too dangerous to escape. If he was beaten as soon as he showed up, how could he survive in the cultivation world in the future? Suddenly he frowned and his eyes lit up. He remembered what Healy said. Healy said that the black fire could burn people's mind and destroy their divine sense. Why not give it a try? Luo Qingtian's divine sense swept back and forth at the bottom of the river. He didn't even let go of the corners of the river, fearing that Yu Qianqiu was hiding somewhere. Yu Qianqiu quietly stretched out 2 fingers, and a black light the size of an egg appeared on his fingertips. He pointed at the divine sense that was sweeping over. On the shore, the scattered people gradually approached again. Most of them suspected that Yu Qianqiu had escaped. After a long time, even Ziyi started to lose confidence. However, at that moment, Luo Qingtian, who was standing on the surface of the water, suddenly raised his head and let out a painful groan. He staggered on the surface of the water and lost control of himself. Half of his body sank into the water. Seeing that the black fire could really hurt people's divine sense, Yu Qianqiu, who was under the water, was overjoyed. He took advantage of the moment when Luo Qingtian was absent-minded and once again seized the opportunity to attack without hesitation. Suddenly there was a shocking change on the surface of the river. The water surface set off a wave of air, and the river water quickly spiraled up, completely engulfing Luo Qingtian. A water dragon that was dozens of meters wide and nearly 100 meters long instantly formed on the surface of the river. Just as everyone was shocked, the huge water dragon suddenly refracted the dazzling sunlight and looked crystal clear. It stood in the river and instantly stopped moving. "Ah, it's frozen," many people exclaimed. After everyone reacted, they found that the water dragon really froze into ice in an instant, and it was showing a dense chill under the sun. The river is also frozen. Exclamations sounded again. Everyone looked together and saw that the river, which was 100 meters wide and 200 to 300 meters long, was full of white frost, and the chill was against the ice dragon. "Ah, look, Yu Qianshou is up there." One person screamed and pointed. Everyone looked over and saw Yu Qianshou standing proudly on the top of the 100 meters high ice dragon with his hands behind his back. The sunlight refracted from the top of the dragon, and he looked quite imposing. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan were shocked. It was incredible that someone could instantly cast a spell to form such a large piece of ice. The masters of the 4 major families as well as the 6 elders floating in the air across the river, all looked at Yu Qianshou and secretly thought that he was indeed the disciple of the great ancestor. Ziyi's eyes lit up. Senior Bai's disciple did not let her down. Those who knew who Yu Qianshou's master thought that such a mysterious spell must have been taught by Changchun, but they didn't know that it was created by Yu Qianshou. Of course, Bai Changchun's guidance was also indispensable. Sect leader? A group of Daluo sect disciples cried out in sorrow and rushed under the ice throne. At this moment, Luo Qingtian's voice suddenly spread from under the ice throne, and he shouted, "Get out of my way. This is a personal grudge between me and Yu Qianshou. How can a mere ice trap me?" Chapter 362. Several figures stopped upon hearing the voice and stayed on the ice surface. Luo Qingtian's voice came from the ice again, "Step back." The Daluo sect disciples didn't dare to hesitate anymore and quickly returned to the shore. Yu Qianshou looked at the ice throne below from the top of the ice dragon. He knew that it was difficult to trap an expert with such cultivation, but he could step on the Daluo sect leader today. Even if he lost later, it would be a glorious defeat. The eyes of the spectators on both sides of the river were also focused on the place where Luo Qingtian was trapped. Ah! A dull sound came from below the ice dragon, followed by a creaking sound. Cracks began to appear on the ice throne below, destroying the beauty of the entire ice dragon. The cracks began to spread to the body of the ice dragon. Bang! There was a loud noise, and the entire ice surface and both sides of the river trembled. The base of the ice dragon exploded instantly, and a figure shot out from below. The power of this explosion was extremely great. In order to escape, Luo Qingtian resisted the heavy pressure and used all his cultivation to make the explosion. The power could be imagined. Huge ice pieces shot out in all directions, and the onlookers on both sides of the river suddenly scattered. Those with low cultivation were already scared to the point that their faces turned pale. Under such power, not to mention the people, even the houses on both sides would be destroyed in an instant. At this moment, Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan tacitly flashed and stood by the riverside. At the same time they pushed out their palms with great cultivation. A strong airflow rolled out and instantly pushed countless huge ice pieces to the river surface, saving many people and shops here. After this action the two of them looked at each other. It was not that they really had a tacit understanding, but on this Hat Island, there were 2 shops and disciples at the same time, so they naturally had to protect them. On the other side of the river, the Wu family would take action. The surface of the frozen river was full of holes because of the exploding ice cubes. Under the ice throne, there was an ice pit at the place where Luo Qingtian escaped. After the huge ice dragon lost its base, it was about to collapse. Who knew that the bottom of the ice dragon just happened to correspond to the ice pit and was stuck there? Surprisingly, it was still standing on the ice river. However, the ice dragon was already shorter, and its body was covered in cracks. It could collapse at any time. Luo Qingtian stood on the ice surface dozens of meters away and looked up. His white eyebrows trembled as he laughed wildly. "What a great Yu Qianshou! You really live up to your reputation. How many years has it been since I took over the exalted immortal sect? This is the first time someone has forced me into such a sorry state. This old man has finally seen the world today. My son dying in your hands is not an injustice. Ah, it had been a long time since he had a free fight. Who would have thought that he would be able to have a good fight with a junior today? Yu Qianshou, do you still dare to fight?" The voice spread out in all directions. "There's something wrong with this old thing's brain. He's speaking incoherently. You're the one at a disadvantage. I should be the one asking this question." Yu Qianshou stood on the shorter ice dragon and spat out 2 words in a sonorous voice, "I'll accompany you." As the saying goes, the livelier a place is, the more attractive it is. Once you look, there will be something interesting to watch, and the people who have dispersed will return to the shore without fear of death. Sword come. Luo Qingtian stretched out his hand towards the shore and shouted. The guard who was carrying his sword on the shore immediately held the sword with both hands. Luo Qingtian formed a claw with his hand, and with a clang, the sword was unsheathed and quickly shot into his hand. Qiu Weiyuan glanced at Dongfang Chang'ao beside him and said, "The sword of the exalted immortal sect masters is a high-grade offensive Dharma treasure. If Luo Qingtian pulls out the sword, I'm afraid Yu Qianshou will be in danger." Dongfang Chang'ao looked straight ahead and said, "You and Yu Qianshou call each other brothers. If you help, I promise I won't say anything." Although one of them was a righteous and the other a demonic, they often met on different occasions and did not get along well with each other. Qiu Weiyuan rolled his eyes and stopped talking. He was too lazy to find trouble for himself. Luo Qingtian's sharp eyes under his white eyebrows glanced at the clear sword body with pity. Instantly, he became full of battle intent and laughed loudly. "I thought it was enough to deal with a junior empty-handed. I didn't expect you, Yu Qianshou, to have cultivated such a mysterious spell that you can actually force me to pull out this sword." The ice dragon under Yu Qianshou's feet was not evenly distributed, and there were more and more cracks. It could fall at any time, but Luo Qingtian always had endless things to say. Yu Qianshou said angrily, "Old man, you talk too much nonsense. Are you going to fight or not? If not, I'm going back to sleep." Luo Qingtian was speechless and stunned. This was the first time someone dared to talk to him, the exalted immortal sect master, like this. Despite Luo Qingtian's noble status, many people in the crowd couldn't help but laugh out loud. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Weiyuan looked at each other with a strange expression. The four family heads of the four major families were full of admiration. On Ziyi's pretty face there was already a sweet smile. She was looking at the man on top of the ice dragon with admiration. Luo Qingtian was immediately angered by this sentence. He shouted, "Ignorant junior, how dare you!" The long sword in his hand slashed out a sword energy. As the sword edge slashed out, it formed a crescent silver-white cold light and shot out quickly. Bang! Ice shards splashed everywhere. The sword energy directly cut the ice dragon in half, and the upper half fell down. Yu Qianshou waved his sleeves and threw out a green flying sword. He flipped over and jumped up from the ice dragon, landing on the flying sword. As soon as his feet landed, there was a whistling sound, and a sharp sword energy rushed towards him. At the same time, the ice dragon that was cut in half finally collapsed. Yu Qianshou rode his sword and dodged quickly. The sword energy brushed past him, stirring up a strong wind and flew into the sky. Luo Qingtian's face was gloomy. The sword in his hand slashed dozens of times, and the sword energy immediately formed a sword net that covered the sky. The people who were worried about Yu Qianshou changed their expressions. Ziyi had a piece of purple-black bamboo in her hand. She was ready to teleport to help at any time. Yu Qianshou squinted his eyes. The distance was too close and it was too difficult to get through the gaps in the sword net. Moreover, the sword net was too wide. With his speed, it would be equally difficult to escape. He thought for a moment, then turned around and rode his sword straight into the sky. The sword energy that formed a net chased after him. In the blink of an eye, after a few hundred meters, Yu Qianshou flew backward and successfully passed through the expanding sword energy net. How could he always be suppressed by others and not fight back? If he didn't make a name for himself today, then when would he fight? Yu Qianshou's eyes were cold. He shouted, "Hi!" and opened his arms as if he was summoning something between heaven and earth. The group of people below was glad that he was out of danger. When they saw him doing this again, they were wondering what he was going to do. Suddenly their expressions changed. In an instant, the sky darkened. The water rippled in the sky and the range was a few hundred meters. It was right above Yu Qianshou's head. Yu Qianshou opened his arms and stared down fiercely. "Ah! What is going on?" There was a cry of surprise from below. A lake actually appeared in the sky out of nowhere. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Weiyuan looked at each other and said in surprise, "Water spell." Ziyi's eyes sparkled. She felt that it was a worthwhile trip to see such a mysterious spell. The people from the four major families all opened their mouths and looked at the sky in disbelief. "Ah!" Yu Qianshou shouted again. He raised his arms in the air and turned. A large area of water in the air gradually rotated. It rotated faster and faster like a tornado in the air. The momentum was really amazing. Now he finally understood what his master had said. He could control the source of heaven and earth, so it was indeed easier for him to use some techniques. Otherwise, with his own cultivation, he would not be able to withstand such a large pool of water in the air, let alone control it. Luo Qingtian looked at the sky and his pupils shrank. He also didn't understand what Yu Qianshou was going to do. He couldn't drown himself with a pool of water, right? Go. Yu Qianqiu pointed his finger at Luo Qingtian below. The water whirlwind above his head immediately shot out water arrows. When they passed by Yu Qianqiu, they immediately turned into ice thorns with cold light whistling down. Oh my god! What kind of spell is this? Someone below exclaimed. Dozens of ice thorns flew over rapidly. Luo Qingtian did not care about these things. He was afraid that Yu Qianqiu had made such a big commotion, so he should not only have these tricks up his sleeves. He dodged it immediately. Tut tut tut. Dozens of ice thorns pierced deep into the ice and some of them were smashed into pieces. However, what followed was not just dozens of ice thorns but hundreds of them. Luo Qingtian shouted, "Is this all you've got?" He didn't dodge anymore. The long sword in his hand stirred up sharp sword chi in the air. In an instant, ice chips flew everywhere, and they were reflected by the sunlight into a colorful and dazzling scene. Yu Qianqiu seemed to be addicted to it. The ice thorns flew wildly, as if he wouldn't be satisfied until he squandered the pool of water above his head. Indeed, no matter how much water there was, it couldn't be squandered like this. Everyone didn't understand why he was doing such a useless thing. He really couldn't do anything to Luo Qingtian. Looking around, the sky above the river was shrouded by the enchanting colors of the ice dust and sunlight, and the sound of the sword chi breaking the ice was endless. The water in the sky was exhausted, and with the last wave of ice thorns, hundreds of green flying swords suddenly appeared around Yu Qianqiu, protecting him as he rotated like a cone. He carried the flying swords and followed the last wave of ice thorns, shooting towards Luo Qingtian below. Everyone immediately realized that the previous big movement was just a cover-up. It seemed that the final killer move was still on this weird flying sword. The Daluo sect disciples were afraid that the sect leader would be blinded by the ice dust and suffer losses. One of them exclaimed, "Be careful, sect leader, it's a trap." As soon as he said that, Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan glared at that person, and that person immediately shut up. Luo Qingtian was alert when he heard that. He vaguely saw a green shadow shooting towards him from the sky, and immediately thought of the terrifying green fire. He kept his long sword and quickly dodged. But it seemed a little late. "I didn't manage to blow you up last time, so I have to let you have a taste of it this time." Yu Qianqiu smiled sinisterly and rushed into the ice dust with the flying sword. Bang bang bang. The green fire flying sword immediately exploded into a sea of green fire. The green fire spread, and the ice dust on the river immediately dissipated. Luo Qingtian's speed was really fast. In the blink of an eye, he rushed out of the sea of green fire and flashed into the air. However, his appearance had changed drastically. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was in rags. His coat was burnt, his shoes and trousers were gone, and the few rags on his body were also burnt black. His hair was burned short, especially that pair of beautiful white eyebrows. It was such a pity. Fortunately, Yu Qianqiu did not intend to harm the innocent. There were still many people on both sides of the river watching against the high temperature. However, Luo Qingtian's appearance in the air almost made everyone's jaws drop. Was this still the Daluo sect leader with an extraordinary aura? "Yu Qianqiu, how dare you trick me?" Luo Qingtian shouted furiously in the air. *CK. You still managed to escape like this? Yu Qianqiu looked at the sky in shock. Fortunately, he still had a backup plan, so there was still a way out. The sea of fire quickly converged into his body. Without saying anything, he turned around and dove into the melted river. This was his backup plan to save his life. He did not understand why Luo Qingtian could escape from the sea of fire unscathed. It was because he did not hear it when he dove down. If Luo Qingtian was not reminded by his disciples, he would have suffered a great loss. Chapter 363. After Yu Qianqiu went into the water for a few meters, he knew that he was in trouble and immediately fled in panic. Although the power of the green fire was great, the time it appeared was too short. Only the top few meters of the frozen river had melted, and the bottom was still solid ice. It could only be blamed that the environment of this era was too good. There was no pollution and the water was as clean as anything. It could be seen clearly at the depth of a few meters. In addition, with the ice at the bottom of the water as a foil, every move of Yu Qianqiu underwater was seen by Luo Qingtian, who was above. This made Luo Qingtian feel strange. Why was he able to see that brat without using his divine sense? Luo Qingtian was slightly stunned, but he immediately understood. He chuckled and chased after Yu Qianqiu in his ragged clothes. He quickly blocked Yu Qianqiu's path and held his sword high with both hands. The sword in his hand turned into a huge sword shadow and fiercely slashed toward the river. Bang! There was a loud sound. The river was slashed by a white chain, and a water curtain that was hundreds of meters long and tens of meters high exploded. The people on the shore couldn't see the situation at the bottom of the river because of the different angle. When they saw Luo Qingtian's crazy action, they were all confused. The sound transmission effect in the water was not bad. It made Yu Qianqiu dizzy. The huge undercurrent that surged from the bottom of the river immediately rolled him back. He didn't think much and retreated more than 10 meters. His body lit up with green fire, and he directly turned into ice and drilled into the layer of ice. Luo Qingtian chased after him again and was stunned again. There was a green lantern-like ball of light in the layer of ice below. It was really eye-catching. He couldn't help but laugh and said, "Yu Qianqiu, let's see where you can escape to this time." He ran to the front and raised a huge sword shadow to slash down. When the water splashed down, Luo Qingtian actually drilled into the water along with the splashes. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan rose into the air at the same time. When they saw the big green lantern at the bottom of the river, they immediately understood everything. The two of them looked at each other and cursed in their hearts. What was the difference between this brat and burying his head in the sand? There was a huge wave on the surface of the river, and a layer of ice as wide as the river emerged from the bottom of the river. It turned out that Luo Qingtian had moved the ice that was stuck to the bottom of the river. The buoyancy of the ice layer was great, and it immediately floated when it was removed from the bottom of the river. In the big ice that was 100 meters in length and width, there was a shining green shadow swimming around. They didn't need to guess to know that it was Yu Qianqiu. Luo Qingtian was deliberately making a fool of Yu Qianqiu. He wanted to use this method to regain some face. The shining green light in the ice suddenly disappeared as if it Qianqiu felt. Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu suddenly realized that the ice and you had Yu Qianqiu. The flickering cyan light in the ice suddenly disappeared, as if it had sensed the arrival of danger. Just now, when the ice was shaking, Yu Qianqiu had felt that it was strange. He had accidentally discovered that he could vaguely see the sun in the sky. It was impossible for this to happen underwater. His heart suddenly sank and he felt that something was wrong. The green fire quickly disappeared, and he immediately realized that the whole space of the ice layer was bright. Needless to say, with the basic knowledge from his previous life, he immediately judged that the ice layer had surfaced. The word danger immediately appeared in his mind. Luo Qingtian saw that the green light in the ice disappeared, and he paused for a moment. He immediately waved the huge sword shadow without hesitation, and slashed at the place where the light was. Suddenly, a green flame broke through the ice layer and burned fiercely. The huge sword shadow was a shadow formed by sword qi, so it was not afraid of the green fire. It immediately broke through the green fire, and with a loud bang, it directly cut the big ice layer with a radius of 100 meters into two. The people who were concerned about Yu Qianqiu immediately turned pale. They didn't know what happened to him. Ziyi bit her lips tightly. She firmly believed that Elder Bai's disciple would definitely not get into trouble so easily. Luo Qingtian retracted his sword qi, held the sword, and stood steadily on the shaking ice layer. His pair of sharp eyes looked around. Before confirming that Yu Qianqiu was dead, he didn't dare to release his divine sense to scan again. He didn't know what strange method Yu Qianqiu used to damage his divine sense. That feeling was simply unforgettable. Otherwise he wouldn't have been frozen by Yu Qianqiu. At this moment, in the shaking ice layer, a figure dragged two black shadows and shot out from not far in front of Luo Qingtian. At some point, Yu Qianqiu had pulled out two strange-looking sabers. The sabers were 2 meters long and half a meter wide. They were black and shiny, and they didn't look like anything out of place. Not many people would be able to tell what style they were. Yu Qianqiu didn't care what style it was as long as it was convenient to use. These two swords were suppressed by him using black fire. They imitated the style of the machetes used in his previous life, but they were enlarged a lot. However, the grip area wasn't enlarged, so it looked a little out of place. This sword was taken from the Netherworld Fire Sea. I don't believe it's useless. Yu Qianqiu roared in his heart. He jumped down from the sky and slashed at Luo Qingtian with the machetes in his hands. Such a big sword made Luo Qingtian slightly stunned. He flipped his hand and a silver-white sword qi shot out, attacking the two big swords that were slashing at him. Swoosh, swoosh. The two big black swords cut through the sword qi as if they were cutting a piece of paper. Luo Qingtian and Yu Qianqiu were stunned. The former was shocked, and the latter didn't know that the black fire swords could cut through the sword qi. According to common sense, if it could block the sword qi of a master without being damaged, it was already a good treasure. They had never seen such a situation before. In fact, Yu Qianqiu didn't know how powerful the black fire was. Just think about it, after the burning black smoke formed a wind blade, it could break through the protective aura and easily cut through the dark steel, let alone the big swords formed by the black fire itself. Good swords. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Weiyuan exclaimed immediately. The people watching the battle were amazed. They didn't expect that there was such a magic weapon in this world that could cut through the sword chi of a master as easily as cutting a piece of paper. Greed appeared in many people's eyes. The 4 patriarchs of the 4 major families exchanged glances. The 4 of them were favored by Changchun, and each of them was rewarded with a low-grade spiritual treasure. Naturally, they thought that the strange swords in Yu Qianqiu's hands were good treasures given by Changchun. After Luo Qingtian recovered from the shock, he immediately waved his sword to block the swords. Ding! The 2 big black machetes showed their power again. They directly cut the sword in Luo Qingtian's hands into 3 pieces. It was still effortless. Luo Qingtian was shocked. The swords were already in front of him, and he quickly dodged more than 10 meters away. He looked at the sword hilt in his hand and was speechless. This was the high-grade offensive magic weapon passed down by the Daluo sect's patriarch. How could it be so easily chopped off by someone with a knife? He really couldn't believe it. The sword of the Daluo sect's patriarch was also famous in the cultivation world. Anyone with a little common sense would know what kind of treasure it was. Now it was cut by someone just like that? The onlookers were so shocked that they couldn't speak. Even Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Weiyuan were dumbfounded. Only the 4 patriarchs showed an expression as if they had expected it. Everyone looked at the 2 strange but inconspicuous big swords in Yu Qianqiu's hands and immediately thought of a possibility. Could it be a legendary spiritual treasure? Otherwise, with Yu Qianqiu's cultivation, how could he easily destroy a high-grade magic weapon? Suddenly, everyone's eyes were burning. Chapter 364. Don't run. Watch my blade. As soon as Luo Qingtian dodged, Yu Qianqiu chased after him like a crab with 2 big pincers. Once he got close, he raised his blade and slashed. When the former came back to his senses, he was already ashamed and resentful. The treasure passed down by Daluo sect's previous leaders was actually destroyed in his hands. How could he not feel ashamed and resentful? Of course, the most important thing at the moment was to avoid Yu Qianqiu's broadsword. This strange broadsword could even cut high-grade treasures like cutting vegetables, let alone a person. Luo Qingtian's speed was needless to say. However, close combat was also Yu Qianqiu's forte. The experience he had accumulated from risking his life in his previous life was not something that could be easily forgotten. Otherwise he would not have gotten 2 machetes. For a moment, a spectacular scene appeared on the ice surface. Daluo sect's leader's figure was like a phantom, moving between the 2 broadswords. On the other hand, Yu Qianqiu was a brave man who was fearless. He wanted to kill Luo Qingtian with the machete in his hands. He didn't give Luo Qingtian any chance to stop and counterattack. His skill with the machete was so skillful that it made people gasp in amazement. He believed that even the martial arts masters in the secular world were no better than him. The 2 of them were entangled just like that. The spectators were dumbfounded. No matter how they looked at it, it didn't look like a fight between people from the cultivation world. Qiu Weiyuan said in a daze, giving up his advantage. It looks like he's going to fight with his life. Luo Qingtian is a bit out of control. It's been more than 100 moves. Dongfang Chang'ao said, then turned his head and said, if the treasure passed down by 10,000 demons as previous leaders was destroyed in your hands, you would also be a bit out of control. Big broadsword. Ziyi's lips parted slightly. Yu Qianqiu's one-on-one style completely subverted her concept of fighting. This was especially so for that kind of valiant and unafraid of death. That kind of aura of either you die or I live was absolutely shocking. Speaking of which, Luo Qingtian was just impulsive. After a long time, he realized that it was hard for him to get close to Yu Qianqiu with his cultivation. He immediately came to his senses and realized that something was wrong. As the 2 sabers danced, there seemed to be a heart-palpitating aura and a bone-piercing chill. It was even colder than the ice beneath their feet. It was the kind of bone-chilling feeling. The most frightening thing was that there was an irresistible sense of trance. This was probably the reason why he had lost his composure. This pair of black broadswords was definitely not simple. As soon as he woke up, Luo Qingtian naturally wouldn't bother with him anymore. He found an opportunity and moved dozens of meters away in a flash. Yu Qianqiu became more and more courageous as the battle went on. He was having a great time fighting, so why did his opponent run away? He shouted, "Old thing, don't run." He carried a pair of large sabers and chased after them again. When the spectators heard this, their foreheads were instantly filled with cold sweat. This brat was unforgiving when he had the upper hand, and he was addicted to fighting. Qiu Wuyuan lowered his head and sighed helplessly. Luo Qingtan, you've really embarrassed yourself today. Daluo mountain splitting palm. Luo Qingtian shouted before he could stand still. He raised his hand and a huge palm shadow appeared. *CK. Yu Qianshou screamed and quickly stopped. If he was hit by this palm, his life would be in danger. Therefore, without saying anything, he threw a large saber with force, and the blade pointed directly at Luo Qingtian. When Luo Qingtian saw that his opponent actually abandoned the treasure to protect himself, a flash of joy appeared on his face. The Daluo sect leader's inheritance treasure was destroyed in his hands. If he could get a better treasure back, not only would he not be guilty, but he would also be rewarded. In an instant he had an idea. He instantly retracted the power of the mountain-splitting palm. His body moved to the side to avoid the blade, and he easily grabbed the handle of the saber. Not good. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan screamed at the same time. The latter's eyes were burning as he said, if such a treasure falls into Luo Qingtian's hands, I'm afraid it won't be able to return. The moment Luo Qingtian grabbed the saber, he immediately felt the majestic and breathtaking power from the saber. It was a kind of power that seemed to come from the netherworld. It was a kind of power that could decide a person's life and death. It was gloomy, terrifying, cold, ruthless. At that moment, all kinds of extreme negative emotions spread from the saber. Luo Qingtian's body trembled and he couldn't hide the surprise on his face. He held the saber and laughed wildly. It's really a good saber. I've never seen such a treasure in my life. Ah! The eyes of the spectators were filled with greed again. This saber could be so affirmed by Luo Qingtian, so it was definitely not something that an ordinary treasure could compare with. Moreover, everyone had witnessed the power from before. Yu Qianshou, you destroyed my Daluo sect's inherited treasure. Now your saber can be used as a scapegoat. From today onwards, it belongs to my Daluo sect. Luo Qingtian pointed the long saber at Yu Qianshou and said. On the shore, the group of Daluo sect disciples were also filled with joy. Yu Qianshou silently put away the saber in his hand into his storage pouch, as if the fight was already over. Everyone suddenly realized that the deadline of 100 moves had long since passed. The sect master of the exalted immortal sect would not go back on his word. However, everyone felt that it was a pity. Although Yu Qianshou's life was saved, he had lost such a treasure. They were afraid that they wouldn't be able to get it back from Daluo sect in the future. Just as everyone was shaking their heads in pity, they heard Yu Qianshou coldly snort and say, My saber is my saber and my things are my things. If I don't want to give it to you, no one can take it away. Only I am worthy of this saber. He slowly raised his finger towards Luo Qingtian and said, You are not worthy. 100 moves have passed. I don't want to fight anymore. If you want to live, put down the saber and I'll spare your life. Everyone shook their heads again. Everyone knew how to boast. Luo Qingtian's cultivation was higher than yours. Now that he had such a treasure, why would you, Yu Qianshou, find trouble for yourself? Ziyi was probably the only one who believed that Yu Qianshou wasn't boasting. She didn't believe Yu Qianshou, but she believed that Elder Bai's disciple wouldn't boast. Since he said so, there must be a reason. Luo Qingtian held the saber horizontally in front of him and looked at it carefully. He sneered and said, Yu Qianshou, don't be too presumptuous. I promise I won't kill you after 100 moves, but I won't allow you to provoke me. If you make me angry, I'm afraid you won't be able to keep your other saber. Since you're looking for death, don't blame me. Yu Qianshou said coldly and suddenly shouted, Put down the saber. As soon as he shouted, Ah! Luo Qingtian let out a scream and the saber in his hand fell to the ground with a clang. Yu Qianshou stretched out 2 fingers and flicked it expressionlessly. The big black saber on the ice bounced up and spun in the air. It went straight to the side of Yu Qianshou. Everyone was shocked by the sudden change of situation. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan looked at each other. With Luo Qingtian's cultivation in mind, how could ordinary pain make him scream so painfully? What was going on? Of course, they didn't know that this saber was condensed by black fire and was controlled by Yu Qianshou. If Yu Qianshou said it was a saber, then it was a saber. If he said it was fire, then it was fire. Just now, it only made Luo Qingtian hold the saber handle a little bit of black fire. Think about the black fire that even Bai Changchun couldn't overcome. How could Luo Qingtian bear it, even if it was just a little bit of black fire? Yu Qianqiu didn't want to reveal the secret of the black fire for the time being. Otherwise, if the entire saber turned into a sea of black fire, Luo Qingtian wouldn't be alive. The disciples of Daluo sect couldn't bear it anymore. They quickly rushed over to check on their sect leader's injury. They were also vigilant of Yu Qianqiu, who was standing not far away with the saber. Dongfang Chang'ao, Qiu Weiyuan Zi, the four patriarchs, and many onlookers rushed onto the floating ice. The entire floating ice sank into the water. The water had already reached the top of everyone's shoes, but no one cared about it now. With so many people coming, Luo Qingtian bit his lips and endured the pain to not make a sound. The arm that he used to hold the saber was shaking non-stop. Everyone suddenly realized that Luo Qingtian's palm had already turned into white bones. There was a dark murderous aura on the wound, and it was still spreading to his arm. Wherever the murderous aura went, pieces of flesh would fall off. When they fell on the ice, they would slowly corrode and turn into blood. The situation was too horrible to look at. According to this situation, if the murderous aura didn't stop spreading, it wouldn't take long for Luo Qingtian to turn into a skeleton. Chapter 365. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. They all turned to look at the saber that was stabbed into the ground beside Yu Qianqiu. They didn't know what was on the saber, but it was able to injure someone so badly just by holding it. Everyone suspected that there was poison on the saber, and it wasn't an ordinary poison. Otherwise, with Luo Qingtian's cultivation, how could he be injured like this? Daluo Sect's shop manager Yi Haiping suddenly walked to Dongfang Chang'ao's side and bowed with a sorrowful expression. Elder Dongfang, Fuxian Island is the leader of the righteous sects in the cultivation world. Daluo sect is also a part of the righteous sections. I hope Elder Dongfang can find a way to save our sect leader. These words were immediately met with a cold snort from Qiu Weiyuan. This kind of injury was extremely strange. What method could Dongfang Changgao have to treat it? It was just that he had offended Yu Qianqiu, so he couldn't ask for help. Instead, he blamed Fuxian Island and asked Dongfang Chang'ao to help. The righteous sects were all deceiving people. Dongfang Chang'ao frowned. How could he not understand what Yi Haiping meant? He looked a little hesitant, but he was actually overjoyed. If he could get the antidote from Yu Qianqiu to cure Luo Qingtian, he could bring Yu Qianqiu back to Fuxian Island. Daluo sect would owe him a favor, and the sect would praise him for doing it properly. With this consideration, he turned to Yu Qianqiu and said, Yu Qianqiu, sect leader Luo said that after 100 moves, the grudge between you and Daluo sect will be over. You don't have to worry about it anymore. If you have the antidote, why don't you take it out now and end this as soon as possible? Yu Qianqiu looked at Elder Dongfang, who used to be in the sect, and shook his head. Elder Dongfang, I don't have the antidote and I don't need it. This isn't poison. It's just the killing intent on the saber. The injured can't be cured. Killing intent? Everyone was shocked and looked at the saber. It had a strange black luster, but they couldn't see anything strange about it. When Yu Qianqiu saw that the group didn't believe him, he flicked his finger on the blade. With a wung-wung sound, the big black blade immediately emitted a faint black mist. Those who were close to it shivered, feeling a chill that seeped into their bones. One by one they retreated, especially afraid of being touched by the black mist. Nice blade. Qiu Weiyuan couldn't help but exclaim. Dongfang Chang'ao looked at the saber from top to bottom in disbelief. Although the saber was vicious, it was a good treasure. The greed in everyone's eyes was faintly discernible and difficult to conceal. Yu Qianqiu swept a cold glance over and snorted, Those who have designs on my saber, listen up. The saber is stuck here. If you have the ability, take it. I, Yu Qianqiu, will not say a word. Is there such a good thing? The group of people was suddenly eager to try, but no one dared to step forward. After all, Luo Qingtian was already in such a state with his cultivation. Sect leader. A group of Daluo sect disciples suddenly exclaimed. Everyone's attention immediately shifted from the saber to Luo Qingtian's body. They saw that his injured arm was gone, and an arm that was almost completely corroded into bones was lying on the ground. The bones were also slowly rotting in the wind. This Luo Qingtian was really cruel to himself. When he heard that there was no cure, in order to save his life, he actually took action himself and used his left hand to remove his right arm. However, this was still a good way to save his life. Although he lost an arm, his life was at least saved. Yu Qianqiu raised his eyebrows slightly. In fact, it wasn't that he couldn't save Luo Qingtian. He could completely absorb the killing intent, but he wouldn't do that. His thought was that since they were opponents, they should have the awareness of being opponents. It was a bit ridiculous to expect an opponent to save an opponent. How could there be such a good thing all the time, unless the opponent had some ulterior motives? This was the reality that both the winner and the loser had to face. There was no such thing as logic. Luo Qingtian was indeed a character, at least in front of everyone. After he stood up with the help of the inner sect disciples, he stared at Yu Qianzhou with a pale face and said, "From today onwards, the grievances between me and Daluo sect and Yu Qianzhou will be written off." He was indeed qualified to say such words on behalf of Daluo sect. After he finished speaking, he was helped away by the disciples. However, everyone could clearly see the resentment in those disciples' eyes as they looked at Yu Qianzhou before they left. Yu Qianzhou snorted coldly. He was even more determined to settle the score with Daluo sect. He would not show any mercy. The dignified Daluo sect leader ended up like this. The entire Daluo sect's face was lost. Everyone sighed incessantly. When they looked at Yu Qianzhou again, they suddenly came to a realization. This guy was definitely a famous figure in the cultivation world. He challenged the exalted immortal sect's sect master one-on-one and won. After one night, his name would probably shake the entire cultivation world. Although he did not win with his own cultivation, Dharma arts and treasures were also part of his strength. There was nothing to doubt about that. By right, the crowd should have dispersed by now, but they were still lingering. Naturally, they were still drooling over the treasured saber. Who asked Yu Qianzhou to say that? Brother Yu. Qiu Wuyuan rubbed his hands together and said with some embarrassment, "You said that the saber will belong to whoever can take it away. Is that true?" Senior Qiu, you've known me for so many years. When have you ever seen me lie? Yu Qianzhou smiled and continued, "But I advise Senior Qiu not to try. Why don't you watch the show?" Qiu Wuyuan was a little hesitant. What if someone else took away such a good thing? However, he wasn't confident either. In the end, he pursed his lips and said reluctantly, "What a pity. All right, I'll listen to you." As if I'm confident that you'll listen to me. Yu Qianzhou retracted his smile and looked around. He said in a deep voice, "I don't have time to play with everyone here. If anyone wants to try, come at me. If there's no one else, I'll be keeping the saber and leaving." Even though everyone was eager to try, there were a few experts present who did not say anything. Naturally, it was not convenient for the rest to take the lead. Unexpectedly, someone behind Yu Qianzhou asked weakly, "Can I go and try?" It was a woman's voice. Yu Qianzhou almost fainted when he heard that. "I set up the arena here with a plan. Why did you come and ruin my plan?" The person who said this was none other than Ziyi. She was also excited to see such a treasure. However, how could Yu Qianzhou let her try? He was afraid that she would take it away the moment she took it. He didn't dare to hurt her. Others can, but not you. Yu Qianzhou rejected her straightforwardly. This time, Ziyi couldn't take it anymore. She turned to face him and asked coldly, "Why can others but not me? It's fine if you're stubborn, but why did you come out and ruin my plans?" Yu Qianzhou couldn't get angry at her. He kicked the back of the saber and the saber tilted. He grabbed the handle and pulled it out. He looked around and said, "I, Yu Qianzhou, am an honest person. I don't talk nonsense. Words that have been spoken are like water that has been spilled. There's no way to take them back. However, I see that everyone here is very polite. It's not a good idea to keep giving way. How about this? Patriarch Wu." He turned around and shouted, "How many spirit stones do you think my saber is worth?" Wu Sihai came closer and said in surprise, What do you want to do? Do you want to sell the saber? Don't think too much. If I auction this saber, what do you think the starting price will be?" Yu Qianzhou smiled. Hearing this, many people's eyes lit up. They had the same doubts as Wu Sihai. Wu Sihai looked at him suspiciously and said in a deep voice, "If you auction it, the origin, name, material, power, and whether it can be used repeatedly are all factors that determine the price." Yu Qianzhou looked at the crowd and said with a smile, "It's said that someone brought this saber out from the Eastern Holy Land. As for his origin, I don't know anything. However, one thing is for sure. It can definitely be used repeatedly. I've used it for a very long time." "What? The legendary Eastern Holy Land?" A wave of exclamations came from all directions. Experienced cultivators had all heard of this place. It was the ruins of an ancient war. Something that could come out from there might be a spirit treasure. No wonder this saber's power was so domineering. It turned out that it came from the Eastern Holy Land. Ziyi frowned in doubt. Who would have the ability to bring something out from the Eastern Holy Land? Yu Qianzhou didn't care about everyone's glowing eyes. He looked at Wu Sihai and said, Just estimate the starting price for the auction. Don't be too high. 100 million high-grade spirit stones. Wu Sihai was silent for a while and finally spat out this number. That's too high. Yu Qianqiu said in a clear voice, I, Yu Qianqiu, am a man of my word. I said that whoever can draw this saber will have this saber. I won't go back on my word. However, it seems that everyone has a lot of scruples. I'm afraid that those who don't have the ability will lose their lives in vain. Here I, Yu Qianqiu, solemnly declare to the entire cultivation world that in 3 days, I will be holding a saber-drawing conference on Hat Island. In order to prevent people with bad intentions from causing trouble, those who draw the saber must pay 10 million high-grade spirit stones in advance. The time limit is 15 minutes. Of course, those who have more money can try again as long as they pay. Chapter 366. What if it's really taken away by 10 million high-grade spirit stones? Are you really willing to let someone take away such a treasure? Someone in the crowd shouted. Yu Qianqiu pointed at the knee-deep river and laughed heartily. This floating ice can't bear the burden anymore. Let's talk about it after we get ashore. He kept the saber and rode his flying sword to the shore first. The group of people was too engrossed in the treasure and didn't care about what was happening under their feet. After Yu Qianqiu reminded them, they all went ashore. When almost everyone was there, Yu Qianqiu pointed at the person who spoke earlier and said, I won't hide it from you. I, Yu Qianqiu, will say anything. I've never lied since I was young. It's innate and can't be changed. If someone really took away the saber with 10 million high-grade spirit stones, not only will I not regret it, but I will also congratulate him. Today I'll leave this statement here. Everyone can be a witness. The time limit is 15 minutes. Isn't the time too short? Someone asked again. However, those who asked this question were basically people who could afford 10 million. Yu Qianqiu explained enthusiastically, it won't do if there's no time limit. If someone takes a few days to draw the saber, what will happen to the people behind them? Many people laughed secretly. It seemed like some people really had this thought. 10 million per person, isn't it a little expensive? Another person asked. It's not expensive at all. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and said, just now, Clan Head Wu estimated it at 100 million. Everyone heard it. Wu Clan has a foothold in the cultivation world because of their reputation. I believe everyone won't doubt it. If I, Yu Qianqiu, am really greedy, I won't set the price at 10 million. I'll directly set it at 100 million. Originally, I didn't want to charge a single spirit stone for this saber drawing conference. But after thinking about it, I can't accept it. If you don't accept it, then everyone in the cultivation world will flock here. Everyone will want to have a try and there will definitely be a big mess. But if you set the price too high, wouldn't you? That would be unfair to those who have the ability but not enough money, so I directly reduced the price of 100 million to 10 million. This way there would be a threshold for more people to participate, and it would also avoid unnecessary trouble. Yu Qianqiu, you said that those who can afford to pay can try again. For most people this is not fair enough. If some people fail to pull it out, they won't have a second chance. But those who have money can try again. The person who spoke turned around and asked the crowd, everyone, don't you think it's unfair? Immediately many people joined in and jeered, yes, it's not fair. Everyone can only try once. The scene became a little chaotic. Without saying a word, Yu Qianqiu took out the machete from his storage pouch. The machete immediately emitted a breathtaking aura. It was as if the entire machete was possessed by a demon from the netherworld. Under the sun, there was not even the slightest bit of reflection. Those who were near the machete shuddered and retreated. The scene quietened down and everyone's eyes focused on the machete. Although the machete did not look like much, its power was unquestionable. It was definitely a good treasure. Yu Qianqiu did not say anything. He held the machete horizontally and let everyone admire it. Peeping at other people's treasures was also a taboo in the cultivation world. But now, the owner of the treasure was so generous, so everyone naturally would not miss the opportunity to carefully examine it. However, some people were restless. They could not get enough of looking at it with their eyes. They actually released their divine senses to check, hoping to peep at the mysteries within. This time it was lively. Immediately, more than a dozen screams came from the crowd. The dozen people held their heads with their hands and lay on the ground, wailing. The others immediately became vigilant, not knowing what was happening. Yu Qianqiu threw the machete in the air. The machete fell and went straight into the ground beside him. He held the handle with one hand and sneered, I forgot to remind everyone that this machete is extremely powerful. I don't think any Dharma treasure below the level of a numinous treasure can withstand its sharpness. However, it also has another effect. It can hurt people's divine senses. Sect leader Luo had suffered from it before. I believe these dozen people have used their divine senses to check this treasure just now, right? So that was the case. Everyone relaxed their vigilance. No one cared about the dozen people who were still groaning in pain. Their eyes focused on the machete again, and their greed could not be concealed. They did not expect this machete to be so magical. It could actually hurt people's divine senses. It was really an amazing treasure. No wonder Luo Qingtian suddenly let out a scream for no reason. It turned out that his divine senses had been hurt by this treasure. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan also found it a little difficult to move their eyes away from the machete. What that friend said just now is right. The previous method seems to be a little unfair. How about this? The price and time limit for drawing the machete remain the same. Each person can only do it once. However, there are many rogue cultivators in the cultivation world. They do not belong to any sect. Compared to those who have sects, they are the most disadvantaged. In order to reflect absolute fairness, each sect or family can only send one person to draw the machete. It's still the same saying. The machete belongs to whoever can draw it. What do you think? Yu Qianqiu asked. This was good for most people, but for those big sects it was a loss. Which sect didn't want to get their hands on such a treasure? However, everyone saw the power of this machete. Even Luo Qingtian could not resist it. Which sect could guarantee that they could draw it? The big sects had a lot of money and experts. They definitely wanted to try a few more times. Yu Qianqiu's words were considered fair, but no one dared to agree. Most people looked at Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan. And these two people also glanced at the crowd with burning eyes. Because of fairness, the atmosphere was a little gloomy. After waiting for a while, no one said anything. Yu Qianqiu walked to Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan and bowed. He smiled bitterly and said, "Seniors, please take the lead and say something. Elder Qiu, you know how I am. I always mean what I say." At the beginning, everyone felt that the rules were unfair. I had no choice but to change the rules. But now no one said anything. I'm really in a dilemma. Seniors, please say something for me. Qiu Wuyuan sneered and glanced at the crowd. Brother Yu, I have known you for many years. You are indeed a man of your words. The treasure is yours. You have also set the rules. No one has the right to change the rules. Do what you should and don't allow others to criticize you. If anyone is dissatisfied with your strength, I will be the first one who can't stand it. Whoever is dissatisfied, come at me. I, Qiu Wuyuan, agree with the original rules and object to the new rules. Dongfang Chang'ao nodded slightly and said, the rules of fairness should be reflected on everyone, not just the sections. There are big and small sects, and there are also different numbers of disciples. We can't let the other disciples lose the chance to fight for the treasure because of the suppression of the elders in the sect. I think the original rules are fairer. His words sounded nice. If a disciple of a sect obtained the treasure who could keep it for themselves, they would still have to hand it over to the sect. Moreover, how many disciples could take out 10 million yuan? Among the righteous and demonic sects, one was rude and unyielding, while the other was tactful and more skillful. But their goal was the same, which was to agree with the original rules. Since the two leaders of the righteous and demonic sects had spoken, the others didn't dare to have any objections. In the end, they still followed the original rules. Since no one has any objections, please spread the rules of this saber-drawing meet to the entire cultivation world. I, Yu Qianqiu, also hope that this treasure can be obtained by someone capable. Yu Qianqiu cupped his hands at the crowd. He casually picked up the huge saber from the ground and stuffed it into his storage bag. Then he patted his butt and left. Seeing how easily he drew the saber, everyone's eyes lit up. Chapter 367. The bridge from Hat Island to the Wu clan had been burned. Although the floating ice on the river was enough to carry Yu Qianqiu and the others, they had to fly over. The crowd dispersed one after another, anxious to report back to the sect what had happened here. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan watched Yu Qianqiu leave. After a while, the two of them glanced at each other at the same time and snorted disdainfully. The two of them, who had a tacit understanding just a moment ago, split up. In quiet guest house, Yu Qianqiu walked around and unexpectedly didn't see Wu Lixue. However, he didn't have the mood to think too much about it. He wanted to use this opportunity to teach that stubborn girl a lesson. When he returned to the living room, Zi was standing there with an embarrassed face. She seemed to have realized her mistake. Umph. Yu Qianqiu sneered, then turned to face her and said in a strange tone, I really don't know why my master sent you to follow me. Help me. Using the method of working against me to assist me? That's my honor. Thank you for your cooperation. But I've had enough. Now, please go back to Shantian Island and find my master. Tell him that I'm a difficult person to work with. I'm the one who chased you away. You can push all the blame to me. I won't refute it. Then you can stay in your South Sea purple bamboo forest. Please. I won't send you off. He gestured to the door. Ziyi's slightly drooping face suddenly lifted up. She said with some resentment, You want to chase me away? How can I face Elder Bai like this? What a joke. You also know that you don't have the face to face my master? Yu Qianqiu asked with a sullen face, Do you know why I took out my treasure to hold that sword-drawing assembly? I didn't know at first, but now I know. Ziyi's face drooped again and she said, For the spirit stones. Then do you know why I need the spirit stones? Yu Qianqiu asked bitterly. This time, Ziyi's head drooped even lower. Her voice was almost inaudible as she said, To complete Elder Bai's great trust. So you knew. I thought you didn't know. Yu Qianqiu immediately rebuked him harshly. Then why did you ruin my plan at that critical moment? You keep saying that you want to complete the task that my master entrusted to you. Is this how you complete it? Do you think I would dare to keep you by my side? I think there's no need for you to do anything more, and we can return to Obedient Island to complete our mission. Only Yu Qianqiu could say such harsh words to such a pure and beautiful woman. However, this guy had made up his mind to educate Ziyi. He had to do it while this girl was still pure. Otherwise, if she became as cunning as the Enchantress of 100 Charms, he wouldn't be able to fool her even if he wanted to. So, he had to take the opportunity to educate her. From now on, he had to make her firmly believe that everything Yu Qianqiu said and did was right. I was wrong, don't chase me back. Ziyi lowered her head as she said this. She actually started to sob. Yu Qianqiu was startled. He didn't think that he could make a late-stage transcending tribulation cultivator cry. His heart softened a little, but he immediately hardened his heart and said fiercely, I was wrong? What a simple sentence. Does it mean that when someone does something wrong, they just have to say they were wrong and everything will be fine? Then what's the point of fighting and killing in the cultivation world? Ziyi immediately shook her head and said, Don't chase me back. Give me another chance. I won't go against you in the future. I'll do whatever you say. You say it nicely, but when your temper flares up one day, I'm afraid you'll forget what you said today. Yu Qianqiu expressed his disbelief. I promise. Ziyi raised her hand and wiped the tears from her eyes. She said seriously, If you don't believe me, I can swear. From the looks of it, you really do know your mistake. Then I'll believe you this once. You don't have to swear it. I believe you won't make me sad again because you're not that kind of stupid woman. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and thought, If your father knows that I made you swear like this, he definitely won't forgive me. After he finished thinking, he took out a spirit pill from his bag of holding and opened his palm in front of Ziyi. Ziyi, who had a cautious expression on her face, suddenly had stars appear in her eyes. Yu Qianqiu had a 7-colored spirit pill in his hand. Rich spirit energy surrounded the pill, and it was obvious that it was not an ordinary spirit pill. Actually, whether or not the pill was good wasn't what attracted her, but the beautiful 7-colored light. It was natural for women to love beauty. Here, eat it now. Yu Qianqiu smiled and handed it to Ziyi. Ziyi took it suspiciously and asked, What kind of spirit pill is this? Do I eat it now? As soon as she finished speaking, she saw Yu Qianqiu's expression sink. Ziyi immediately remembered what she had just promised him and swallowed it without hesitation. She stood to the side without saying anything, silently feeling the changes in her body. Yu Qianqiu walked to the chair opposite her and sat down. He smiled and asked, Have you heard of the Rui pill? I've heard from my master that it is a rare treasure of the human world. Consuming one can make one youthful, and it can also... Ziyi paused and pointed at herself in disbelief. She stammered, What I just consumed, could it be Rui pill? That's right, it's the rare Rui pill you mentioned. Yu Qianqiu smiled. This was what it meant to give a carrot after a stick. He was going to teach her a lesson and not be afraid that she wouldn't listen to him in the future. Ziyi was so flustered that she didn't know what to say. The Rui pill could make people stay young. It was something that all women dreamed of. She took a long time to calm down and said, Yu Qianqiu, thank you. Unexpectedly, Yu Qianqiu stood up and said disappointedly, Hey. Originally, this pill could be sold for at least 100 million upper spiritual stones. It might even be more than that. I kept it for myself for a long time, but I can't let you work with me for nothing. Just take it that you've done me a favor and I'm paying you for it. Now that you've taken my salary, you can't throw a tantrum in the future." When Ziyi heard this, she couldn't be excited anymore. She stood there with an idiotic look on her face. According to Yu Qianqiu, this was a time when they needed money. Did she eat 100 million just like that? Could it be more than 100 million? Moreover, Yu Qianqiu couldn't bear to eat it himself, but he gave it to her. She really owed him a big favor. She might not be able to repay him. Just when the two of them were speechless, Wu Lixue walked in from outside. Her face was pale and she didn't look good. When she saw Yu Qianqiu, she actually bowed and said, "My grandfather and the others are outside the courtyard. They want to come in and greet you." Yu Qianqiu was surprised and said, "Shui, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" He walked over and wanted to touch her forehead. Unexpectedly, Wu Lixue immediately took a few steps back as if she was avoiding a thief. This made Yu Qianqiu's caring hand miss. This time Yu Qianqiu was even more surprised. How did a lively and lovely woman who was in love become like this? There must be a big change. He then narrowed his eyes and said in a low voice, "Shui, what's wrong with you? Did someone bully you? Who dares to touch my woman? Tell me, I'll kill his whole family." Wu Lixue didn't say anything. Whenever Yu Qianqiu took a step closer, she would take a step back. Yu Qianqiu was instantly anxious. He chuckled coldly and said, "You don't want to tell me, right? I'll go out now and kill everyone I see. I'll definitely find someone who knows." After speaking, he let out a cold snort and flung his sleeves before rushing out. Yu Qianqiu was famous in the cultivation world for daring to do anything. Otherwise he wouldn't have the titles of scum and lunatic. Wu Lixue often cared about him, so she naturally heard of his deeds. She definitely believed that he could really start a massacre in the Wu clan. She immediately blocked the door and pleaded, "Yu Qianqiu, don't be reckless. I'll tell you." "Say it. What exactly is going on?" Yu Qianqiu asked in a deep voice. Wu Lixue had a painful expression as she bit her lips and said, "I heard that you are my clan's old ancestor's personal disciple. Even my grandfather and the others have to respect you as a teacher. It is against the rules for us to be together." Yu Qianqiu raised his brows and immediately understood what was going on. He immediately spoke straightforwardly, "Bullsh*t. Who's the one spouting nonsense? I have no relationship with your Wu clan's old ancestor. When did I become your old ancestor's personal disciple? This is pure nonsense." Ziyi's eyes moved back and forth between the two of them. There were many things she couldn't understand, but she had a slight pain in her stomach and was holding on to it. Wu Lixue's tightly knitted brows gradually relaxed. There was a trace of pleasant surprise on her face, but she didn't dare to reveal it. She asked weakly, "Is it true? Then why did Elder Wu Jinggang tell me this?" "You silly lass. Don't you know that I have a grudge with him? He is purposely using you to anger me and make me unhappy. Don't you understand?" Yu Qianqiu pretended to be angry as he reprimanded. However, he was really angry in his heart. "It's Wu Jinggang again. I haven't even settled the score with you, but you are here to stir up trouble. Very good." "Really?" Wu Lixue's eyes lit up. "Of course it's true. Your grandfather and the others respect me because my current master is highly respected in the cultivation world. It's not as complicated as you think." Yu Qianqiu raised his hand and caressed her hair. There was a rare gentleness in his eyes. He thought in his heart, "Originally I could openly use Old Man Bai's name to extort money from the four major clans. I gave up doing that because of you. Furthermore, your surname is Wu and you have no blood relationship with the surname Bai. How can the surname Bai be your old ancestor? Bring her to the bath first." Yu Qianqiu pointed at Ziyi and pouted to the outside. "Also, let your grandfather and the others come in." When Wu Lixue saw Ziyi, he was immediately startled. He exclaimed, "Ziyi, what happened to you?" He saw that on Ziyi's exposed skin there was a black stain. It was a bit scary. Ziyi was also shocked when she touched it. However, she might have some understanding of the Rui pill. After the shock, she immediately reacted. After looking at Yu Qianqiu, she immediately urged Wu Lixue to bring her away. After watching the two women leave, Yu Qianqiu thought about making another batch of Rui pill when he had the time. The footsteps outside interrupted his thoughts. He put on a smile and went out to welcome them. The patriarchs of the four major clans, the 6 clan elders, and the more important elders of the Wu clan were all here. The greetings between the two parties were a little awkward. Now, because of Yu Qianqiu's identity, although they hadn't said it openly, everyone didn't know how to address him. Yu Qianqiu didn't care. He made way and waved his hand. Everyone, if you have something to say, please come in and take a seat. We can talk slowly. The group of people nodded and walked into the hall one after another. Just as everyone entered in a single file, Yu Qianqiu's eyes suddenly flashed with a trace of fierceness. A clump of green flames that had been raised to the extreme suddenly appeared in his hand, and he suddenly shot it at Wu Jinggang, who was passing by. At such a close distance, Wu Jinggang was unprepared. Before he could react, he was enveloped by the raging green flame. Ah! A short scream resounded through the quiet guest house. As the green flame disappeared, Wu Jinggang had already turned into ashes. Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly. No matter what intentions you had when you said those words to Wu Lixue, I will kill you. Whatever intentions you have will be for naught. The people of the four major clans suddenly looked over and were instantly stunned. But Yu Qianqiu put on a smiling face as if nothing had happened. He raised his hand and said, "Everyone take a seat inside. I was just about to discuss the matter of the saber drawing assembly with everyone. Please." He took the lead and walked into the hall. Chapter 368. He could act as though nothing had happened, but it was impossible for the Wu clan to act as though nothing had happened. Especially with Wu Jinggang's status, which was only slightly inferior to the clan head, Wu Sihai. He already had a group of followers in the Wu clan. Otherwise he wouldn't have gone against the clan head, Wu Sihai. Wu Sihai was stunned on the spot, and the group was dumbfounded. The first to react was Wu Jinggang's backer, Wu Bao. He teleported in front of Yu Qianqiu and clenched his fists so hard that they made cracking sounds. His face was completely red as he shouted angrily, "Yu Qianqiu, you, how am I impudent?" Yu Qianqiu smiled with his eyes squinted. The group recovered from the shock. The 5 clan elders from the 4 major clans teleported over and stood in between the two of them, but they didn't know what to say. Especially Bai clan's clan elder, Bai Yunshan. In terms of seniority, Yu Qianqiu was their clan's senior. To the other 3 clans, it wasn't an overboard thing to disobey the teachings of their ancestors from 2,000 years ago. Therefore, now that Yu Qianqiu had killed a Wu clan elder, Bai Yunshan was the most embarrassed. He couldn't help, but he couldn't not either. After all, Yu Qianqiu was backed by his clan's proud ancestor. But it wasn't right for Yu Qianqiu to kill someone without a reason. Bai Yunshan guarded against Wu Bao and asked Yu Qianqiu, why did you kill Wu Jinggang? If you don't give a reasonable reason, I'm afraid the Wu clan won't tolerate you. The 4 clan heads looked at each other and didn't say a word. It was better to let the 6 clan elders handle such a troublesome matter. Reason? There were plenty of reasons. Yu Qianqiu sneered, "You are Bai Yunshan from the 4 major clans, right?" Bai Yunshan frowned and nodded, "Yes." "Good. I didn't tell you my identity before, but I believe you have guessed it. I will tell you now." Yu Qianqiu cupped his fists and bowed towards the Fey Ghost region and said, "My master is the world's #1 expert, the Fey Ghost region's punishment enforcer, a late-stage soul formation cultivator, by Changchun. Yu Qianqiu was ordered by my master to handle some matters. Now that I have met my master's descendant, the Bai clan's descendant, should greet him respectfully." Although everyone already knew Yu Qianqiu's identity, the shock they felt when they heard it from his mouth was indescribable. Bai Yunshan and Bai Shouji were so moved that their lips were trembling. Without saying a word, they obediently walked to Yu Qianqiu and knelt down. Bai Yunshan sincerely bowed and said, "The descendants of the Bai clan are indebted to our ancestors, allowing us to survive for more than 2,000 years. We dare not forget our ancestors." Descendant Bai Yunshan and son Bai Shouji kowtowed to Mr. The 2 of them immediately kowtowed as soon as they finished speaking. They were still extremely excited. The reason why the 2 of them were so excited was that Yu Qianqiu's words had stimulated the proudest part of their hearts. Who in the cultivation world dared to claim to be the world's #1 expert? The ancestor of the Bai clan dared to do so. Who in the world could control the demon ghost domain where demons and ghosts roamed freely? It was their ancestor. How many cultivators of the late deity stage were there in the world? Their ancestor was one of them. The glory of their ancestors would naturally shine on their descendants. The 2 of them could not help but be excited. After kowtowing, father and son were still kneeling there, waiting for Yu Qianqiu to wake them up. Yu Qianqiu graciously accepted their greetings. Then he looked at the other 3 clans and said, "After all, the 3 of you are not my master's bloodline descendants. Although you all follow the teachings of your ancestors and regard my master as your ancestor, I dare not ask too much of you. However, if you receive a drop of kindness from someone, you must repay it with a gushing spring. If the 4 great clans are willing to kowtow and pay their respects, then do so now. Hearing this, the clan leaders and clan elders of the Tan clan and the Jing clan also kneeled down and paid their respects. The people of the Wu clan instantly looked at each other. Logically, they should go and pay their respects. However, Yu Qianqiu had just killed Wu Jinggang. Moreover, he had not given a reason yet. Who could bring themselves to bow and pay their respects? If they wanted to pay their respects, Yu Qianqiu could have just given any reason. But what was going on now? Could it be that this kid wanted to break up the 4 great clans? Wu Sihai looked at Yu Qianqiu with a gloomy expression. When Yu Qianqiu asked the people of the 3 clans to stand up, he suddenly winked at him. Wu Sihai was momentarily stunned. Then he immediately realized what was going on. In his heart, he immediately prostrated himself in admiration. This kid was really something. Not only did he kill Wu Jinggang for revenge, he also solved the problem of seniority with Shui'er. His intelligence and ability to respond to emergencies were really outstanding. I have accepted your 3 clans' greetings and confirmed my status with your 3 clans. The Wu clan is not willing to pay their respects to me. Naturally, there is no seniority relationship between me and the Wu clan. Of course. Yu Qianqiu looked at the Wu clan and said, I personally cannot represent my master. This is a matter between me and your Wu clan. Your 4 major clans will still be your 4 major clans. There is no need for you to tie everything together endlessly. The development of the matter didn't exceed Wu Sihai's expectations, but he didn't know that Yu Qianqiu had another reason for doing this. It wasn't easy to get the Wu clan's money because of Wu Lixue, but the other 3 clans weren't weak either. He had to find a way to get them to fork out some money. He had already thought it through. Since Bai Changchun had given the authority to him, the old fellow wouldn't mind if he were to get some money from his descendants. The matter of seniority has been clarified. Now let's talk about Wu Jingang's matter. There is no hurry to settle everything one by one. Yu Qianqiu turned to the other 3 clans and said, Your 3 clans might be curious why I wanted to kill Wu Jinggang. If the Wu clan hasn't forgotten about the reason, you should be clear about it. Why don't your 3 clans ask the Wu clan? The hall went silent, and only Wu Bao was still panting with rage. In fact, the 4 major clans knew about the grudge between Yu Qianqiu and Wu Jinggang. They also knew that Yu Qianqiu said he would take Wu Jingang's life. It was just that this matter happened too suddenly, and even the victim didn't have time to react. The other 3 clans might have confirmed the seniority with Yu Qianqiu, but they were all flesh and it wouldn't be good to help anyone. I refuse to accept this. Wu Bao roared and looked at everyone. Yu Qianqiu might be the old ancestor's disciple, but what right does he have to kill wantonly in my Wu clan? What right does he have? Don't implicate my master. I'm only asking you, what right does that Wu Jinggang have to kill me? Could it be that he doesn't need a reason to kill others, but others need a reason to take revenge? Tell me, what right does Wu Jinggang have? Could it be that just because you are his backer in the Wu clan he can act unscrupulously? Yu Qianqiu spoke with an icy cold tone. Wu Bao opened his mouth. He knew that what Yu Qianqiu said was the truth, and everyone knew about this matter. Wu Bao didn't know how to refute. Most importantly, he couldn't reason with Yu Qianqiu and he couldn't use force either. Be it reasoning or forcing logic, Yu Qianqiu had never been afraid of anyone. Yu Qianqiu stared at Wu Bao and spoke in a deep voice, I don't wish to have any impulsive conflict with the Wu clan. Since you don't accept me, I can make an exception and bring you to the Demon Ghost region to meet my master. I will let my master decide the right and wrong. I wonder if my master's words can convince you? Hearing that they were going to meet Bai Changchun, everyone's eyes were fixated on Wu Bao. It was unknown if they were envious or worried, but Wu Bao was instantly speechless. This matter will be put aside for now. After I settle the matter that my master instructed, my master and your ancestor will decide the right and wrong of this matter. What do you think? Yu Qianqiu looked at everyone and asked. I agree. Wu Zhen took the lead to agree and Wu Rui nodded as well. Wu Sihai naturally didn't have anything to say, let alone the other Wu clan's elders. Finally, the 4 major clans decided to put this matter on hold and wait for Bai Changchun to handle it. Yu Qianqiu nodded and said, All right, since everyone has agreed, we will put aside the grudges for now. The saber-drawing meet still needs to borrow your Wu clan's venue, and we will need your Wu clan's help for this matter. Let us discuss this matter first. Chapter 369. The holding of the saber drawing ceremony could be said to have set off a huge uproar in the cultivation world. A treasured saber from the Eastern Holy Land. This gimmick alone was enough to attract people. What kind of place was the Eastern Holy Land? It was an ancient battlefield where ancient spiritual treasures had been used for generations. No one knew how many mysterious things were left there. In addition, Yu Qianshou had defeated the Daoyuo sect master with this saber, so it was hard not to be jealous. The major sects gathered their masters and counted the spirit stones in their storage. They were all full of confidence and prepared to get the saber back. Some small sects that were not strong enough also asked their ancestors to help. Some small sects that did not have enough spirit stones even borrowed money from everywhere to give it a try. Who wouldn't be tempted by a mere 10 million spirit stones that could possibly be exchanged for a spiritual treasure? After all, the saber was very strange. It was not something that could be obtained by someone with a high cultivation level. Luo Qingtian's cultivation level was high, right? He still could not take it away. Yu Qianshou's cultivation level was not high, right? He still chased Luo Qingtian everywhere with the saber in his hand. For a time, no one in the cultivation world mentioned the fact that Yu Qianshou defeated Luo Qingtian. Everyone was concerned about who could take the saber away. It was very likely to be a spiritual treasure. Whoever got it, even if they did not have the fortune to enjoy it, they could still auction it at the Wu clan. That would be a big profit. At this time, Yu Qianshou released important news to the outside world through the 4 major families. I, Yu Qianshou, am really ashamed that I have alarmed the entire cultivation world because of this small matter. Good things come in pairs. I am willing to take out the other treasured saber for the saber drawing contest. Both sabers will be drawn at the same time, so that those who have the ability to get this saber will not return empty-handed. The cultivation world was shocked again. If some people felt that there was no hope for one saber, then there was much more hope for 2 sabers. Therefore, all the sects were actively preparing spirit stones. Big sects like the Fuxian Island and the 10,000 Demons had many talents and strong financial resources. They were even more prepared to get the 2 sabers in one go. The East Sea was far away, and the blue waves surged to the heavens. Seabirds soared on a lonely island in the sea. It was unknown when many more buildings had appeared between the mountains, but on the waist of the highest peak on the island, there was even a grand palace that was neither too big nor too small. The island was a nameless island, but the palace was called the Limitless Palace. Therefore, the island was also called the Limitless Island. The owner of the Limitless Palace was none other than the father and son of the Yan family who were forced to flee overseas. Within the palace, Yan Bugue was at the entrance of the terrifying crypt, anxiously pacing back and forth with his fists clasped. Mournful howls could be heard coming from the crypt, and the sound was extremely heart-wrenching. Yan Bugue was so anxious that his forehead was full of sweat. He stopped in his tracks and leaned against the entrance of the crypt, tears streaming down his face. After a long time, the screams stopped, but heavy breathing could still be heard from inside. At this moment, 7 people dressed in distinctive clothing walked out one after another. All 7 of them were drenched in sweat, as if they had been soaked in water. The leader was a burly man with a leather waistcoat and a black cloak. His bare arms were drenched in sweat. Seeing them come out, Yan Bugue rushed over and pulled that man, asking anxiously, "State Preceptor Man who, how's the star chasing?" The man called State Preceptor Man who let out a long breath and nodded, "It's a success. Young Palace Master's wisdom is indeed extraordinary. For so many years, countless people have died under this 7-star blood-piercing technique, but no one has ever succeeded. To think that young Palace Master actually made it through." Hearing that it was a success, Yan Bugue was anxious to see his son. He wanted to rush into the crypt, but was pulled back by the State Preceptor Man who. The latter shook his head and said, "Palace Master Yan, it's better not to go in now. Young Palace Master has just formed his devil body through the 7-star blood-piercing technique, and his wisdom has changed greatly. I'm afraid that no one will recognize him for the time being. If you go in, it might cause a misunderstanding. Please wait patiently for a day." "Devil body?" Yan Bugue exclaimed, "What devil body? What did you say? What did you do to the star chasing?" "Palace Master Yan, don't be impatient." Man who comforted kindly, "It's not that we want to hide it from you, but young Palace Master asked us to do this. He said that he doesn't want you to worry. Now that the devil body has been formed, young Palace Master's future cultivation speed will increase by leaps and bounds. He will have great achievements in the cultivation world." Yan Bugue was after all not a 3-year-old child. After knowing that his son was fine, he quickly calmed down. However, He still had a gloomy expression on his face as his gaze swept over the 7 of them. He said in a deep voice, "You'd better not hide anything from me. If you dare to plot against us father and son, we'll just perish together. No one will have an easy time. Palace Master Yen is worrying too much. You and I have sworn an oath. We will help you unify China's cultivation world, and after we succeed, you will use the entire China's power to help us find the star bead. After that, we will have nothing to do with each other. How can we plot against each other?" Man Hu patted Yen Bugui's shoulder and said, "Palace Master Yen, let's go out and talk. I will tell you everything in detail." Yen Bugui waved his sleeve and left angrily, leaving the 7 people looking at each other in dismay. These 7 people were originally 7 martial brothers. They were all disciples of the same master. Man Hu was their martial brother and also the Dirong Empire's imperial teacher. Eldest martial brother, he is just a stray dog. If we did not save him, he would have lost his life. He is only a crossing tribulation middle stage cultivator, yet he dares to vent his anger on us crossing tribulation late stage cultivators. He must be tired of living. I don't understand, why do we have to rely on him? Could it be that our country's cultivation world combined can't defeat China's cultivation world? The 7th martial brother, who was ranked last, transmitted his voice. Man Hu glared at him and transmitted his voice back. China's cultivation world is deeply rooted in xenophobia. Even if we join forces and conquer it, we will face long-term troubles. We will not be able to organize an effective force to find the star bead. This Yen father and son, especially that Yen Zhuixing, are the #1 sects in both the righteous and demonic Tao. They also have some power in their hands. They are good targets for us to use. In the future, don't talk nonsense like this." Man Hu finished speaking and turned to leave. The 6 looked at each other and silently followed. In the main hall, Yen Bugui had already dismissed everyone and stood with his hands behind his back. Man Hu came out from behind and immediately laughed. "Palace Lord Yen is still angry?" Yen Bugui turned around and said in a deep voice, "Man Hu, what is going on?" Man Hu slightly smiled and directly asked, "Palace Lord Yen, have you heard of the demonic Tao?" Yen Bugui coldly snorted. "This old man comes from the #1 sect of the demonic Tao, 10,000 demons. How can I not know the principles of the demonic Tao?" No, Palace Lord Yen misunderstood. I am talking about the ancient demonic Tao, which is even more ancient than the ancient era. It is not the current demonic Tao of the cultivation world." Man Hu said with a smile. "Ancient? That is at least a few 100,000 years ago. How can this old man know about such a distant matter?" Yen Bugui changed the topic and said unhappily, "Man Hu, don't try to change the topic. I'm asking about my son Yen Zhuixing. What happened?" Man Hu didn't get angry, he laughed and said, "Palace Master Yen is usually a very calm person, how come today?" Okay, long story short, if you want to explain the matter of young Palace Master clearly, you have to start from the ancient demonic path. Yen Bugui asked, "Could it be that what you did to him is related to the ancient demonic Tao?" Man Hu nodded and looked outside the main hall and said, "It is said that in the ancient era, there was not only the immortal world and underworld. There was also a world called the demon world. It said that the demon world is a place that even the immortal and netherworld fear. However, someone sealed the passage to the demon world, so the ancient demon path faded out of people's sight. Until now, very few people know about it. There is such a thing? This old man comes from the demonic Tao. How can I not know about this?" Yen Bugui was surprised. Man Hu laughed and said, "The difference between Palace Lord Yan's Devil Tao and Righteous Tao is that the Devil Tao is different. The ancient Devil Tao is the true Great Tao. Compared to the current Devil Tao, it's like a grain of rice trying to compete with the bright moon. It's not worth mentioning, really not worth mentioning." "Then how do you know about it?" Yen Bugui asked doubtfully. Man Hu proudly said, 200 years ago, I became the state preceptor of the Dirong Empire. I happened to find a set of rare animal skin ancient books in the collection of ancient books in the inner palace. But because the characters on it were too old, no one could recognize it. So it was left unused. Coincidentally, my master is an expert in ancient texts. I have been cultivating with my master for many years and have dabbled in it. So I recognized the origin of this book." "What origin?" Yen Bugui couldn't help but ask. "Devil book." Man Hu's expression was solemn as he slowly said, "It simply introduces some matters of the ancient demonic Tao. In fact, it is a set of devil arts." Chapter 370. Great Devil Arts. Yen Bugue savored these words and suddenly felt uneasy. The sudden palpitation in his heart was hard to describe. It was as if one was trapped in a swamp, oppressed to the point of being unable to breathe. Both of them seemed to have the same feeling. After looking at each other for a long time, Man Hu continued, according to the records of the demonic book, once a devil art is completed, even in the immortal and netherworld, there would be few opponents, not to mention the cultivation world experts. Is it really so powerful? Yen Bugue cried out in shock. I won't hide it from Palace Lord Yen, this is only one side of the story in the demonic book, no one knows the truth. Man Hu said with a serious expression. But the cultivation method recorded in the book is beyond our knowledge, even a spirit-severing expert like my master found it unimaginable. After my master personally translated the demonic book, he ordered me and my fellow apprentices to find people with extraordinary physiques to experiment on. But what was regrettable was that after experimenting with over 1,000 people, not a single one was able to successfully build their body. What? Yen Bugue's expression twitched as he said sternly, Man Hu, how dare you use my son for such a vicious experiment? Palace Lord Yen, please calm down. Man Hu consoled, it was not me who used the young Palace Lord as an experiment, but the young Palace Lord himself requested it. One day the young Palace Lord asked me what was the strongest cultivation method in the world. I said that I didn't know which magic art was the strongest, but I knew that there was a very strong magic art. It was the strongest magic art that I knew of. The young Palace Lord immediately asked me, so I told him about the demonic book. In fact, I only said it casually, but who knew that the young Palace Lord would take it seriously and pester me every day? I was forced to lend him the demonic book, and the result was beyond my expectations. After the young Palace Lord read it, he resolutely decided to serve the devil and cultivate the demonic book. This was too dangerous, so I asked him to discuss it with you first, but not only did the young Palace Lord not allow us to tell you, he even asked us to help him conceal it. Unfilial son, unfilial son. After Yen Bugue roared, he stared at Man Hu with bloodshot eyes. Didn't you tell him that there was no successful cultivation method before? If you want to practice demonic arts, you must first build a demonic body. Man Hu sighed and said, I naturally told young Palace Master about the previous failures, but young Palace Master's strong determination is simply unimaginable. We had no choice but to lie to you with the excuse of using a secret technique to increase our cultivation. Fortunately, the young Palace Master's mind is incomparably strong, and he actually managed to resist the 7-star blood-stabbing art, which is an unbearable torture for ordinary people, and brazenly established his devil body. Even I am surprised. Unfilial son, unfilial son. Yen Bugue kept murmuring like an injured tiger, breathing heavily. It could be seen how important Yen Juexing was to him. Barbarian Tiger and the others exchanged glances and were about to leave quietly to give him some time to calm down. Yen Bugue asked, what about the 7 late-stage nascent soul cultivators under my command? They went in with you. Why didn't they come out? The 7 of them looked at each other in dismay. Man Hu awkwardly said, Those people, I won't hide it from Palace Master Yen. The reason why the young Palace Master was able to establish his devil body is because of their nascent souls and blood essence. What? Yen Bugue suddenly looked up and said, You mean they are already dead? Man Hu silently nodded and said, They have already sacrificed themselves for the young Palace Master, who would be willing to give up their lives. Yen Bugue was not a fool. With his son's cultivation, it was impossible to force any of the 7 to sacrifice themselves. It must have been done by the 7 late-stage transcending tribulation cultivators, but what could he say? Ding-lang ding-lang. At this moment, the sound of chains being dragged came from the back of the hall, causing them to turn their heads. Shortly after, a person covered in blood and tattered clothes came out. His limbs and waist were dragging thick chains. When the person saw the people in the hall, he stopped and looked at them. His blood-red eyes caused them to tremble. If this person was not Yen Juexing, who else could it be? But with such an appearance, no one dared to recognize him. A handsome and elegant man had actually become like this. It was really hard to believe. The atmosphere in the main hall suddenly became strange. Man Hu and his fellow disciples all had a grave expression on their faces. After Yen Juexing's devil body was formed, they had used several thick black iron chains to lock him up. They were afraid that he would run out and cause trouble while his divine sense was not awake. Who knew that he would actually break the chains? How could he do that with his current cultivation? Xing, or how are you? Yen Bugue regained his composure and was about to walk over to investigate, but Man Hu and the other 6 blocked his path and said, "Palace Lord Yen, be careful." Young Palace Lord is still in a daze, unable to differentiate between friend and foe. "Let him go." Yen Zhuixing raised his hand that was dragging the chains and pointed at the people blocking Yen Bugue. But the voice was a bit strange, cruel and emotionless. It was a bit scary. But he clearly still had an impression of Yen Bugue. "He still recognizes me, he still recognizes me." Yen Bugue was a little excited as he separated the few people and ran towards them. Man Hu and the others looked at each other, but just as Yen Bugue approached, Yen Zhuixing suddenly fell to the ground. Yen Bugue screamed and helped his son up from the ground. The sword-drawing event came as scheduled. Hat Island had never been so lively before. More than half of the experts in the Chinese cultivation world had gathered. Even if they were not experts, there were still many who came to watch the show. Most of them came with huge amounts of money. The prices of various industries on Hat Island soared, and all the shops could be said to have made a lot of money. Wu clan spent a few days on Hat Island to flatten a small hill to be used as the venue for the sword-drawing event. The other 3 clans also urgently recruited many people to help. A brand new square was brazenly presented, and around the square were built sheds for resting. Of course, because there were too many people, it was impossible for everyone to have a place. Those who could have a place to rest in the sheds were those who were ranked at the top of their sects, or some famous experts in the cultivation world. The 4 great clans were so willing to help Yu Qianqiu, and it immediately made the cultivation world have a new understanding of the relationship between Yu Qianqiu and the 4 great clans. Festive. At this time, this newly built square could only be described as festive. It was crowded with people, the sound of firecrackers crackling everywhere, and red silk cloth was hanging everywhere. The 4 great clans were sweating profusely. They did not know what Yu Qianqiu was thinking. He insisted on sending people to the secular world to purchase a large number of firecrackers and red cloth, saying that it was an auspicious opening, and that it was an auspicious opening. When did the cultivation world play this trick? It was too vulgar. The most terrible thing was that Yu Qianqiu also asked the people from the 4 great clans to come out to show their faces. Everyone had a big red cloth hanging diagonally, and a big red flower pinned on their chest. In fact, Yu Qianqiu originally wanted to invite some people to perform dragon and lion dances. However, this was not popular in this world and he could not find anyone who understood this industry. Thus, he could only give up on this idea. For a moment, the people from the 4 great clans could be said to be exceptionally conspicuous, attracting everyone's attention. This made the group of old fellows so embarrassed that they really wanted to hide in the sheds and not come out. However, there were many people with high statuses in the cultivation world, so they had to come out to greet them. They could only force a smile and come out to welcome the guests. Although this was unconventional, it had to be said that the atmosphere was really different. It was really festive, and there was less of the oppressive atmosphere of competition. On the other hand, Yu Qianqiu was wearing a red ribbon with a big red flower pinned on his chest. He wandered around the square, warmly cupping his hands in front of his face, and beaming with joy when he saw people. Whether they knew each other or not, he could not stop smiling. Chapter 371. This sect should be able to fork out 100 million. This sect should not be too poor. Corpse sect, a big sect, rich. Yu Qianqiu didn't care about the others pointing at him. He happily wandered around. In truth, he was looking around to see what kind of people had come. He had caused such a huge commotion, and he was already prepared to rake in 2 billion high-grade spirit stones. Looking around, he slowly felt that 2 billion spirit stones wouldn't be a problem. Therefore he laughed even more happily. Even if he saw a disciple from a small sect, he would be the first to greet him with a warm, good. All the disciples who met him were flattered and praised him in their hearts. No wonder he could make such a big name in the cultivation world. He was amiable and didn't put on any airs. Just this point alone showed that ordinary cultivators couldn't compare to him. It seemed that the words of scum and madman were just rumors. Rumors did a lot of harm, so they couldn't be easily believed. Therefore, many disciples from various sects secretly made up their minds to treat Yu Qianqiu's way of dealing with people as a role model in the future. Wu Sihai's gaze always followed Yu Qianqiu, who was wandering around. To be honest, Wu Sihai was really afraid of this guy. Experience told him that wherever this guy went, there would be trouble. This rule was almost 100% proven. Wu Sihai looked around. He had a faint premonition that something bad would happen at the saber drawing conference. That guy was a jinx. Brother Yu. Laughter came. Yu Qianqiu looked back and saw that it was Qiu Wuyuan. He also smiled and cupped his hands. Senior Qiu. Brother, you are too polite. Qiu Wuyuan laughed. I have never seen someone as generous as you in the cultivation world. You are actually willing to take out the 2 treasures in your hands to choose a master. Rare. Why does this sound a little weird? Are you doubting my sincerity? Yu Qianqiu felt disgusted in his heart, but on the surface, he was still polite and modest. You flatter me. Qiu Wuyuan smiled and stroked his beard. He looked around sneakily and suddenly said, Brother, you don't have to hide it from me. Is there any trick to getting these 2 treasures? Otherwise, how could Luo Qingtian's cultivation be weaker than yours? To be honest, I like these 2 treasures very much. If you are lacking in spirit stones, why don't you tell me? I will make the decision. The 10,000 demons will give you 200 million high-grade spirit stones. *CK. You want to exchange 200 million for my 2 billion, and you still want to take it away? Yu Qianqiu's expression instantly turned serious and he solemnly said, Senior Qiu, I Yu Qianqiu have always been upright and above board. Besides, I'm not doing this for money. Senior, please help yourself. I will go and see how the preparations are going. He didn't want to be entangled with him, so he turned around and left. Qiu Wuyuan was stunned, and then he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It would be strange if you're not doing this for money. Do you really think everyone in the world is a fool? Everyone knows that you are relying on the sharpness of the treasures to get spirit stones empty-handed. How dare you say that you're not doing this for money? It seems that the price is too low and this kid doesn't want it. Yu Qianqiu, who was in a bad mood, walked to the temporary stage and asked Wu Sihai, Can we start? Let's wait for a while. Wu Sihai gestured to the empty tent on the left. Yu Qianqiu looked at the 10,000 demons on the right, and then looked at the empty seat on the left. Needless to say, who else could it be other than the Fuxian Island? He sighed and didn't know what to say. The so-called number 1 sect in the world, the Fuxian Island, should be more impressive. Their appearance was always the finale. While they were waiting, a group of people from supporting Immortal Island arrived. The one leading them was actually the Cultivation Pavilion's O Sihai. Behind him were more than a dozen top-notch experts from the Cultivation Pavilion, including Dongfang Changao. Most of these people knew Yu Qianqiu. When they saw Yu Qianqiu on the stage, they were all stunned. O Sihai shook his head and sighed. He led the group of people to their seats. Everyone quieted down. They knew that once the people from the Fuxian Island arrived, it would start. They all looked at the stage. You can start, Wu Sihai said to Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu nodded. Wu Sihai faced the crowd and said in a clear voice, Everyone, there is no need to explain the rules of the saber drawing assembly. I believe that everyone has seen the notice posted outside. Those who are willing to participate, please come up and pay the spirit stones. There will be 2 people in a group. Ziyi and Wu Lixue, who were wearing red ribbons and big red flowers, walked out from the backstage. Yu Qianqiu had asked the 2 of them to be in charge of collecting the spirit stones. When the 2 beauties appeared on the stage, they attracted a lot of attention. However, most of the people in the tent were looking around. No sect or person came out first. The small sects were too embarrassed to come out first. They were afraid of offending the big sections. The big sects, on the other hand, put on airs. This was probably the demeanor of the big sects. After waiting for a long time, everyone was still looking at each other. No one came out. They had already come, so what was the point of putting on airs? It was simply a waste of time. 1 minute was 10 million high-grade spirit stones. Yu Qianqiu raised his eyebrows and jumped off the stage. As he walked, he pulled out a big black machete from his storage bag. His movements were neat and tidy. Everyone's eyes immediately fell on the 2 machetes. The calm atmosphere in the field was suddenly broken. Everyone was a little eager to try. In the center of the field were 2 black circles with a diameter of 2 meters. There was a distance of 3 meters between them. They were 2 black iron discs buried deep in the ground. Before Yu Qianqiu reached the center, the 2 machetes in his hands were thrown into the air. The 2 machetes fell from the air and stabbed into the center of the discs. The 2 machetes were about 2/3 of the way into the discs. Just the sharpness of the machetes, which cut through the black iron like tofu, made everyone gasp in surprise. No wonder even the sword of the Daluo sect master was cut in half. Just this sharpness alone is not something ordinary magic weapons can compare to. Someone discussed. The Daluo sect was not absent among the sections. When they heard this, their expressions changed. Yu Qianqiu walked to the center of the 2 machetes, looked around and said in a clear voice, "These 2 treasured machetes are here. If no one comes to participate in 2 hours, then I, Yu Qianqiu, will personally pull out these 2 machetes and end this conference. The rules of the saber drawing conference do not stipulate that I cannot personally participate. However, after this, no one should say that I, Yu Qianqiu, did not keep his promise." These words were spoken with a resoluteness that left no room for doubt. As soon as he finished speaking, he walked back to the stage with a gloomy face under everyone's gaze. From beginning to end, there was not the slightest bit of sloppiness. Wu Sihai looked at the returning Yu Qianqiu with a look of approval. Then he looked at his granddaughter and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. This time the crowd could not sit still. Almost all the people in front of the tents from the sects stood up with storage bags in their hands. At this moment, someone suddenly shouted, "Let me 10,000 demons take the lead." A figure flashed out. It was Qiu Wuyuan. However, almost as soon as he appeared, his old rival Dongfang Chang'eo flashed out and stood beside him. He said proudly, "Since Brother Qiu is personally going, how can I, Dongfang Chang'eo, not accompany you?" Chapter 372. Everyone present was used to it. These 2 people represented the top sects of the Orthodox and Devil sections. As long as one of them appeared, the other would definitely come out to fight. If it was another sect that appeared first, it would be better. However, when the 10,000 demons appeared first, how could Dongfang Chang'eo, who represented supporting Xian Island, sit back and do nothing? The 2 of them were at loggerheads again. The people from the other sects shook their heads and smiled bitterly. They returned to their positions. It was better not to get involved in the affairs of these 2 guys. The 2 of them looked at each other from the corner of their eyes. They snorted coldly at the same time and turned their heads to the side. At this moment, one person from supporting Xian Island and the 10,000 demons each held a storage bag and went up to the stage to pay the spirit stones for the 2 of them. Ziyi and Wu Lixue took the storage bag and quickly injected their divine senses into it to count. It was the first time for the 2 women to personally handle so many spirit stones. This was all thanks to Yu Qianqiu. Wu Lixue looked a little excited while Ziyi looked solemn. She thought that these spirit stones were related to the great trust of Senior Bai. After counting, the 2 of them nodded to Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up, and a kind smile appeared on his face. He turned to Dongfang Chang'eo and Qiu Wuyuan below and rubbed his hands. Then he raised his hand and said, "I wish the 2 seniors victory in advance. You may begin." There was a table in the middle of the stage with an hourglass on it. Wu Liqing came out and turned the hourglass upside down. The fine sand flowed backwards. There was only a moment, but this moment was worth tens of millions of spirit stones. Dongfang Chang'eo and Qiu Wuyuan did not dare to waste any more time. Their figures flashed, turning into 2 afterimages that appeared in front of the 2 sabers in the blink of an eye. The people from supporting Xian Island and the 10,000 demons could not sit still anymore. They all stood up and stared at the 2 of them without blinking. It should be known that Luo Qingtian's cultivation was not weaker than the 2 of them. In the end, he still ended up losing an arm to save his life. Because these 2 people had been representing the number 1 sect of the righteous path and devil path for a long time, no one could show weakness. The people from both sects looked at the 2 of them with a bit of holiness in their eyes. The people from the various sects also held their breaths and focused, paying attention to the changes that would occur when they drew their swords, so that they could use it when their side went up. Seniors, please be careful. These two treasured sabers have already developed a spirit of their own. When I was subduing them, I spent a lot of time and effort. If you don't have the confidence, don't force yourself. Otherwise, the backlash from these two treasured sabers is not something an ordinary person can withstand. Yu Qianshou suddenly shouted. Hearing that, all the sects looked at Yu Qianshou and cursed him in their hearts. Why didn't you say it earlier or later? Why did you wait until the other party paid up? Aren't you just trying to scare them? However, when they thought about how he said that these treasured sabers had developed a spirit of their own, their bodies trembled, and the words spiritual treasure appeared in their minds. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Weiyun did not notice anything wrong with the sabers in front of them. They looked at each other tacitly and reached out to grab the sabers with solemn expressions. The group of people who were watching also had their hearts in their throats, especially the people from supporting Xian Island and the 10,000 demons. Buzz. The two sabers suddenly let out two sounds of their own. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Weiyuan's expressions immediately changed. A bone-chilling coldness instantly emanated from the sabers, directly resisting the approaching hands. Then a ruthless and cold aura of death pressed on. The two of them immediately felt a little dazed and their bodies became a little weak. Something's wrong, someone exclaimed. Everyone also realized that something was wrong. The two of them were sent out by the number one sect of the Righteous Path and Devil Path to keep up appearances, so it was needless to say that their ability to respond to emergencies was extraordinary. After feeling that something was wrong, they subconsciously bit the tip of their tongues, and the pain woke them up. They both retreated and in a flash they were more than 10 meters away. Their faces were full of shock as they shouted, "Good sabers!" Everyone immediately stood up. Luo Qingtian had lost an arm to save his life, and Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Weiyuan could not even get close to it. The three tribulation passing stage experts' attempts had confirmed the power of this saber without a doubt. Many people's gazes towards the Daluo sect had changed. They were no longer looking at the Daluo sect with mockery. Instead, there was a hint of admiration in their eyes. Luo Qingtian, Dongfang Chang'ao, and Qiu Weiyuan were all cultivators who had advanced to the middle stage of the tribulation passing stage. Although the former had lost an arm, he had once held this saber, and the latter two could not get close to it. From this, it could be seen that the Daluo sect leader was indeed not someone ordinary people could compare to. He truly lived up to his reputation. When the people from the Daluo sect felt everyone's gazes, their faces showed a little bit of pride. It was as if they were saying, "Now you know. It's not that the Daluo sect is weak, but that these two magic treasures are really powerful." At this moment, Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Weiyuan released their aura shields at almost the same time. Just as they were about to draw their sabers again, they suddenly heard a dang 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 sound coming from the main platform. The two of them turned around and saw that Yu Qianshou was holding a gong in his hand. Yu Qianshou pointed at the hourglass with the gong in his other hand and said with a smile, "Seniors, I'm sorry, time is up. It's time for the next group to go up. Please step down for the time being." Time was up so soon? 10 million high-grade spirit stones were gone just like that? Not to mention the two people who drew their sabers, everyone's eyes were focused on the hourglass. They were deeply suspicious of the hourglass's effect. In fact, they had wronged Yu Qianshou in this matter. It was just that everyone was so engrossed in the competition that they forgot about the time. Although Yu Qianshou had the idea of tampering with the hourglass, he was worried that there were too many people present and was afraid that he would be exposed, so he dismissed the idea. Dongfang Chang'ao was stunned, while Qiu Weiyuan was furious. Yu Qianshou ignored them and shouted, "In order to save time, we will arrange the matches according to the order in which the spirit stones are paid. Those who pay first will go up first." Wu Sihai frowned when he heard that. Even if they wanted to earn money, they didn't have to do it so blatantly. He couldn't say anything, so he quietly retreated backstage. If he continued to stand in front of the stage, he really couldn't afford to lose face. On the other hand, his granddaughter Wu Lixue looked at the various sects with excitement. There was a lot of money to collect. The various sects were speechless. Although they knew that Yu Qianshou was obviously trying to get money, who would give up? Wasn't everyone here for the treasure? However, this Yu Qianshou was really good at messing around. If others had such a treasure, they would hide it, but he took it out openly to cause trouble, making it inconvenient for those who wanted to steal the treasure. They could only wait until he was alone in the future. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Weiyuan did not return after a long time. The sects that the two belonged to immediately understood that they wanted to try again. Immediately, the two sects brought a storage bag to the stage and paid another sum of spirit stones for them. Yu Qianqiu waited for the two ladies to confirm the amount, then smiled at the two who did not go up. Seniors, please continue. Wu Liqing, who was below the stage, turned the hourglass upside down. This guy is too practical. Dong Fangchang and Qiu Wuyuan's expressions twitched. They did not want to argue with this greedy guy now to avoid wasting time. The vigor shield on their bodies became brighter and brighter, and they flashed in front of the two swords. Just as everyone was staring at them, they suddenly saw the two of them raise their heads to look at the sky. Then they quickly retreated. Swoosh! A cold light shot down from the sky, and with a bang, a large hole was blasted in between the two swords. A wave of air spread to the surroundings, and a flying sword flew out from the hole, turning into a cold light and shooting back into the sky. Many people immediately flashed out from the sheds around them. They looked up into the sky and saw a flying instrument slowly descending under the crowd's gaze. F***CK. Someone is causing trouble. Yu Qianqiu raised his eyebrows, turned around, took the 4 storage bags from Ziyi and Wu Lixue, and threw them into his own storage bag. Just as he was about to go over to take a look, he saw more than 10 figures flashing out from behind him, and he stopped. Although he was angry that someone was disturbing him while he was making money, those who dared to cause trouble in such an occasion were not ordinary people. He decided to take a look first. How dare you? Who dares to cause trouble here? Qiu Wuyuan stared at the sky and shouted loudly. More than 10 experts from the 10,000 demons stood behind him, and all of them were staring at the sky like tigers watching their prey. The domineering aura of the Devil Dao was undoubtedly revealed. The flying instrument was suddenly taken away by someone in midair, and 8 figures landed in front of the crowd. Almost everyone knew the person in the lead. It was the original young palace master of the 100 Flowers Palace, Yan Zhuixing. And many of the 7 people behind him had met them before. They were Imperial Advisor Di Rong and Manhu's senior and junior brothers. Greetings, Martial Uncle Qiu. Greetings, Martial Uncles of the 10,000 demons. Yan Zhuixing courteously bowed to the 10,000 demons. The 10 people from the 10,000 demons were instantly discouraged, and they looked at each other in dismay. The domineering aura they had at the beginning was nowhere to be seen. Qiu Wuyuan looked around awkwardly and said in a muffled voice, "What are you doing here?" The previous leader of the 10,000 demons, the grandson of his master, came to cause trouble. What else could he say? If you don't have the confidence, then get out of the way. Dong Fangchang Ao sneered at Qiu Wuyuan rudely. These two people would not let go of any opportunity to mock each other. Qiu Wuyuan glared, but when he saw Yan Zhuixing beside him, he immediately shut his mouth speechlessly. Yan Zhuixing, are you declaring war on the Chinese cultivation world? Dong Fangchang Ao snorted coldly, a golden spear appearing in his hands at some point in time. Senior Dongfang, you misunderstood. I heard that there is a saber drawing conference here, so I specially rushed here overnight to participate. I definitely have no other intentions. Yan Zhuixing smiled gently. You are not welcome here, please leave. Dongfang Chang'ao held the golden origin treasure spear horizontally in his hand, and behind him stood a dozen experts from the cultivation pavilion of Fuxian Island. Yes, you are not welcome here, go back. A group of people followed and jeered. Yan Zhuixing turned a blind eye to them and smiled faintly. I heard that anyone can participate in this saber drawing conference as long as they can fork out 10 million upper grade spirit stones. I wonder if Brother Yu, who is organizing this conference, is here? He looked around the crowd and after a while his eyes met with Yu Qianqiu's. Their eyes met and did not separate for a long time. Everyone in the cultivation world knew about the grudge between them. If not for Yu Qianqiu, the Yan father and son would not have been forced to flee overseas. Ah, so it's Brother Yan, long time no see. Yu Qianqiu jumped down from the stage and walked over. He cupped his fists and smiled from afar, as if he was an old friend who had not seen each other for a long time. Ziyi also felt that something was wrong and quickly followed behind him. Wu Lixue also did not want to be left behind. The crowd parted to let them in. Yan Zhuixing also smiled and cupped his fists. Indeed, long time no see. I have been sending people everywhere to ask about Brother Yu, but unfortunately there has been no news. I finally see you today. Chapter 373. What good can you have for me? It's good that you don't fight with me. Yu Qianqiu touched his nose, and they looked at each other silently for a while. Suddenly they laughed together. When they laughed, their eyes were still entangled with each other. Yu Qianshou found that there was something missing in Yan Jueisheng's eyes. In the past he could at least see some pretentious hypocrisy in it, but now it was really cold. His eyes were unbelievably calm, as if they were carved out of ice. There was no emotion in them. Although he was smiling, his eyes were incompatible with his whole person. There was only indifference in his eyes that could not be concealed even if he wanted to. Yan Jueisheng also saw something from Yu Qianshou's eyes. It was the sincerity and enthusiasm of meeting an old friend. However, Yan Jueisheng would not believe that a person who could make up a story to frame him would welcome him sincerely and enthusiastically. Yan Jueisheng looked away and glanced at the women on the left and right of Yu Qianshou. He did not know Ziyi, so he just glanced over her. However, when his eyes fell on Wu Lixue, his cold and ruthless eyes actually showed signs of melting. He cupped his hands and said, "Miss Wu is also here. I didn't expect you to be even more beautiful than before. I don't know if you still remember me?" As soon as he said this, the 7 brothers behind him exchanged a surprised look. They seemed to feel that it was a little unbelievable. Although Wu Lixue knew that Yan Jueisheng had a grudge with her man, it would be strange for a woman to be unhappy when someone praised her beauty. She smiled and nodded, but she did not say anything. Instead, she looked at Yu Qianshou with a gentle gaze. At this time, Yan Jueisheng noticed that the man and the 2 women in front of him were wearing red flowers, which was quite a happy life. The smile on his face suddenly froze. He pointed at the big red flowers on the 3 people and said, "Brother Yu, what are you doing? Could it be that I came coincidentally to run into Brother Yu's happy event?" Yu Qianshou followed his finger and looked at the flower on his chest. He quickly denied, No, it's just to add to the atmosphere of the sword-drawing event." As he spoke, he pointed at the red hanging in the surroundings. Yan Jueisheng looked over and realized that not only Yu Qianshou and the other 2 were dressed like this, but many others were also dressed like this. He immediately stopped thinking about this matter and asked, "Brother Yu, I heard that this saber-drawing competition is held for the entire cultivation world. Anyone who can fork out 10 million upper-grade spirit stones can participate. But now someone wants to drive me away. I wonder what Brother Yu, the organizer, will say?" In the past he was so poor that he had to resort to robbery, but now he seemed to be rich. Yu Qianshou rubbed his nose and glanced at the surrounding sections. He saw that everyone was staring at him. Their intentions were clear. They wanted him to get to know everyone. I, Yu Qianshou, have always been a man of my words, but... Yu Qianshou looked around and said, "There are no more seats here." He wanted to earn money now, but in front of all the sects, he could not blatantly go against them. He rejected them very tactfully. "It's fine. I don't dare to hope for a seat here. We can just find a place to stand." Yan Jueisheng said indifferently. Dongfang Chang'eo snorted and said, "I already said that you are not welcome here." With Dongfang Chang'eo taking the lead, all the sects immediately followed and jeered, "Get lost. You are not welcome here." Yan Jueisheng glanced at everyone coldly. Man Hu, who was behind him, walked forward and laughed. "Why are you in such a hurry to drive us away? Could it be that there is no one in the cultivation world in China who can pull out this saber? Are you afraid that we will steal the limelight?" A few of his fellow disciples laughed together. With the cultivation of the 7 of them at the end of the tribulation passing stage, they were confident that no one present could trouble them, so they were arrogant. When the various sects heard this, their faces were already filled with anger. They might make a move at any time. Yu Qianshou didn't want to ruin his business at this moment. He pointed at the big hole in front of him and smiled bitterly to Yan Jueisheng. "Brother Yan, I wonder which one of you made a move and destroyed this place?" The 7th of the 7 Man-Hu brothers stood out and patted his chest. "I saw that it was so lively down there, so I couldn't help but make a move." His arrogant look seemed to be saying, "I did it, what can you do?" Yu Qianshou couldn't be bothered with him and complained to Yan Jueisheng. "In order to rent this place, I paid 10 million high-grade spirit stones to the Wu clan as a guarantee. The moment you came, you want me to lose 10 million. What kind of logic is this? Forget it. Brother Yan and I are friends, so I will pay for it. Brother Yan better find a place to rest outside." Yan Jueisheng naturally understood the meaning behind his words. "I paid 10 million for you the moment you came, and you still have the nerve to make things difficult for me?" Old Seven's eyes widened as he stared at the hole and shouted, "Nonsense! It won't cost more than 10 million to build this rundown place. Brother Yan, is this your subordinate? Why is he scolding me in front of my face?" Yu Qianshou's voice sank. He turned his head and said, "Z, make him shut up." He believed that even if Zi couldn't gain the upper hand, she would be able to scare the other party into being obedient. Otherwise, that soul formation stage father would be for nothing. Ziyi's expression changed at the mention of money because of Yu Qianqiu. She knew that there must be a motive for Yu Qianqiu to suddenly take out 10 million. Hearing that, she didn't say anything else. A purple shadow appeared and rushed at seventh brother. The speed was so fast that it was unbelievable. Everyone present was shocked. Old Seven immediately felt that something was wrong. He teleported into the air. Who would have thought that while the purple shadow was still below, another purple shadow appeared in front of him. Immediately after, a loud sound rang out in his face. He didn't know what happened, but he was slapped by someone. Don't look at this slap because it was from a woman. The strength of the slap was so strong that it made Old Seven's ears ring. The people below were speechless. A late-stage tribulation transcendence stage cultivator was actually slapped so easily. Stop! The 6 Marshall brothers shouted at the same time. They teleported to mid-air and immediately stopped the purple shadow. Who knew that the purple shadow was like a shadow among the 7 of them? It had obviously stopped her, but it appeared behind her again. It kept chasing after Lao Chi like a shadow, slapping her face again and again. It was so loud that it sounded like a slap after slap. Not only were the people on the ground stunned, but the 7 people in the sky were even more shocked. Although the opponent's movement technique was similar to teleportation consumed a lot of true essence, so it was impossible to use it so wantonly. Only deity transformation stage cultivators would be able to withstand such consumption, but ordinary deity transformation stage cultivators wouldn't dare to use it too much. Pa pa pa. The sound of slapping came from the air, one after another. After a total of 20 slaps, a purple shadow flashed among the 7 people and returned to Yu Qianqiu's side. Her pretty face was still cold. The people who were closer to her subconsciously took a step back. This woman was too terrifying. Yu Qianqiu smacked his lips and couldn't say anything. Wow, I picked up a treasure. Old man Bai has good taste. Yan Zhuixing's expression changed. He thought that he would be able to intimidate everyone by bringing 7 late-stage tribulation transcendent stage cultivators. He didn't expect that he would be beaten up by a woman as soon as he appeared. 7 late-stage tribulation transcendence stage cultivators. She fought as she pleased and no one could stop her. This. Wu Lixue looked at Ziyi dumbfounded. She had been with Ziyi for a few days and knew that Ziyi's cultivation was high, but she didn't expect it to be so powerful. No wonder her man brought her along every day. Thinking of this, Wu Lixue was a little discouraged. It seemed that she couldn't help Yu Qianqiu with her cultivation. Supporting Immortals Island 10,000 demons, and the people from other sects looked at Ziyi and Yu Qianqiu. They couldn't figure out how this guy got such a powerful woman by his side. Not only was she beautiful, but she was also obedient to him. The 7 people in the air were stunned. Old Seven's face was swollen like a pig's head, but he immediately used his power to reduce the swelling. The 7 people flashed back to Yan Zhuixing's side. Man who stepped forward and stared at Ziyi. We are not as skilled as you, so we have nothing to say. May I ask if you used the great art of shifting position? Ziyi's cold expression changed slightly. She looked at Man Hu in surprise. She didn't expect someone to recognize that she used the great art of shifting position, but she didn't reply. Yu Qianqiu also glanced at her. He remembered that when they were in the purple bamboo forest in the South Sea, the handsome old man Nongzhu seemed to have told her to use the form displacement transposition art to escape. Seeing that she didn't speak, Man Hu cupped his fists and said, "It must be the great art of shifting position. In this world, besides Mr. Nongzhu's great art of shifting position, there is no other movement technique that is so mysterious. May I know how to address you and Mr. Nongzhu?" Although the people present weren't the top experts of their respective sects, they still had extraordinary experience. However, they had never heard of the great art of form displacement transposition and Mr. Nongzhu mentioned by Man Hu. They looked at Ziyi and Yu Qianqiu blankly. There was no time for them to interrupt. Ziyi's powerful appearance deprived them of the right to speak. Ziyi still didn't answer, but Man Hu wasn't unhappy at all. He sized her up for a moment, then suddenly nodded and said, "Just now, I heard the famous Yu Qianqiu of the cultivation world call young ladies. Young lady is also wearing purple clothes, so it shouldn't be wrong. It is said that Mr. Nongzhu of the purple bamboo forest in the South Sea has a female disciple named Ziyi, and she likes to wear purple clothes. I think he is talking about you. You know my master?" Ziyi couldn't help but ask when she saw that he was speaking logically. However, this was also equivalent to telling everyone about her background. So it really is Miss Ziyi. Man Hu nodded and said with a smile, Miss Ziyi has never asked about secular affairs. Why are you here? Is it possible that Mr. Nongzhu is also here? If he is really here, I hope you can introduce us to him. The 7 of us have heard of your name for a long time, and we look forward to meeting you. As he said this, he subconsciously looked around and the other 6 people did the same. All the sects muttered to themselves, who is this Mr. Nongzhu? These 7 people seem to be afraid of him. What kind of person can make 7 experts at the late stage of the crossing calamity stage afraid of him? He didn't come. Ziyi replied coldly. At first, she was a little worried that she had hit her master's friend, but now that she knew that these 7 people didn't know her master and only heard of him, her face became cold again. Hearing this, Man Hu and the others seemed to be relieved. Chapter 374. Tut-tut. It seemed that the handsome Nongzhu was quite famous in the soul-forming stage. Yu Qianqiu looked at their reactions and fell into deep thought. Man Hu looked at Yu Qianqiu with a flicker in his eyes. He was afraid that it was not easy to make more than a dozen people from supporting Immortal
After
Island
thinking for a
return to
while,
their
he
positions.
took out another storage
With
bag from
Wuxia
his storage bag and handed it to
the
Yu
other
Qianqiu.
sects could only reluctantly retreat.
My junior brother
the place
was
became
reckless and
empty
destroyed
again.
the venue of the
Yu
competition.
Qianqiu, we just handed
Here
over
are
the
10
spiritual
million upper
stones, but
spiritual
we haven't
stones as
started
compensation.
How are we
I
going
think
to
you can let us
calculate it?
participate in this
Chiu
saber
Yuan
drawing
shouted
competition.
angrily.
He
Yu
and
Qianqiu
Dongfeng
took the storage
Chang'eo
bag
had
and used
entered
his
this
divine
divine
sense to make a
again
rough
again.
estimate.
The
Yu
numbers
Qianqiu have
right,
always been fair,
but it was a little
Seniors,
difficult.
let's start the time
Let them
again.
participate.
Yu
The
Qianqiu
people of
hurriedly
other
gestured
sects
to
might
Wu
have
Lijian
objections
to get
and
ready.
not let them
He
participate.
turned back and smiled
But
at
he
Yan
didn't want to
Zhuixing and the
return the
others.
10 million upper
Brother Yan,
spiritual
please do
stones
as you
to them.
please.
Alas,
After the 2
was
seniors
really a
finished this
dilemma.
round,
You
just
can
as he
just
was
send one
hesitating,
person to the
Zi
stage.
suddenly said,
With
you
another
can only
20 million,
participate if you
Yu
pay
Qianqiu
10
didn't say
million
anything
upper
else.
spiritual stones.
He turned around
If
and
you don't
ran
have
back to the
spiritual
stage.
stones, you can
The
leave.
2 girls followed him.
Her words were
Yan
very
Zhuixing
rude,
looked
very
at Wu
powerful,
Lishu
and
as
back
very
with a
straightforward.
complicated gaze.
Hearing this,
He
Yu
turned
Qianqiu
around
was
and
so
led the 7
surprised that he
people to
almost
the
couldn't
entrance.
close his mouth.
There were already a
He was
lot of road
ecstatic.
cultivators
When
at
did
the
this
entrance.
stubborn girl become
They all
so
looked
smart?
at them with disgust.
She cooperated so
Yan
well.
Zhuixing and Man
In
Hu
fact,
turned
this
a
was all
blind
his
eye to
own
them.
masterpiece.
But Man Whose
He
junior
had
brothers were
educated
so
a simple
angry that
woman
they
who
quit
had
their
never seen
team.
the world to think
Even
about
though they
money.
were at the late
He didn't
stage
know
of
how
passing
Nongju would
tribulation.
react if she
They
knew.
didn't have a seat
All the
here.
sects looked at
If
each
they
other.
were arrogant
The
before, it
deterrent
wouldn't
force
be a
of
big
Z's
deal.
action was
But
still
now
there.
that they lost
So
to
no one
Z,
stood up
it
to
was
object for
suspicious
the
that they
time
were
being.
chased here.
Man who was
They were all
stunned.
masters
He
at
really
the late
took out a
stage of
bag of
passing
spiritual
tribulation,
stones from
so it
his
was hard
storage
for them
bag
to
and
swallow
handed it
their
over.
anger.
Z
Someone
took it and
immediately
carefully
transmitted
confirmed
his
the
voice
number.
to Manhu.
Then she nodded to Yu
Eldest
Qianqiu
senior
and
brother
gave it to
that
him.
Nongju is
Yu
only at the
Qianqiu
mid-stage of
embarrassedly put
spirit
the
severing.
spiritual stones
Our
into his
master
storage
is at the
bag in
late
front of
stage of
everyone.
spirit severing.
He smiled
Besides, this
awkwardly
woman
at
is
Z
only
and
good
said,
at movement.
"Since you said
If
it's
we really
okay,
fight,
let's
we might be
continue
able
the
to
saber
defeat her."
drawing competition."
Big senior brother,
He looked at
we
the
came
crowd
out
with a
this
little
time to
guilty
humiliate
conscience.
the Chinese
The people from
cultivation
the
world.
four great clans
Why
were
are you so
speechless.
polite to her and
They had casually
humiliate us?
told a lie and earned
Man who
another
looked
10
back
million.
at the tall and
This
skinny
kind of
man
money
and
was a little
transmitted
too
his voice
easy.
to him.
However, the
Second
people
brother,
from the
I'm
four
not
great
afraid of
clans
her.
naturally
Her
wouldn't
master
ruin his
Nongju
show,
is a
and
good
all of
friend
them
of mine.
flashed
Flashed
back.
In
The
the
whole
whole
cultivation
Xian
world,
Osihai
only
shook his head
Nongju
as
hasn't
he
taken an
looked at
oath.
Yu Qianqiu.
Among the
He was
spirit
such a
severing
good disciple and
cultivators,
supporting
only
Xian
Nongju
Island.
can enter the
How did it
Chinese
become like
cultivation
this?
world at any
It
time
seemed
to
that it
disturb
was
us.
really hard for a
Master
rogue
once told me
cultivator
that
to live in the
Nongju is used to
cultivation
being
world.
lazy and doesn't
Maybe
like
he was
to meddle.
afraid of being poor.
Besides, he
Not
won't
to
make a
mention
move
that he
because
even
of the
took out
other
such
spirit
treasure.
severing
He
cultivators.
had almost reached the point
Master
where he
told
couldn't
us that
move
if
at
we
the
meet
sight of
him,
money.
we should try to be patient and
Osihai
not give him
sighed
an
and said,
excuse to make
"Go
a move.
back.
Otherwise, we won't be able to defeat him no matter how many people we have. Z is his disciple. If we hurt his disciple, I'm afraid he will have a reason to make a move. That's easy. Master will kill Nongju himself." The tall and skinny man said disdainfully. "You should know that two masters together are not by Changchun's match." Barbarian Tiger's words made the tall and thin man suddenly become silent. Although there was a big hole in the middle of the field, it didn't seem to affect the participants. Yu Qianqiu was also relieved. The two knives were stuck in the ground. After the accident, they weren't afraid that someone would steal them away. As soon as the timer started, Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan used their earth energy to protect themselves. Immediately, everyone put aside the previous incident and focused their attention on the two of them. Yu Qianqiu raised his eyebrows. Under the telepathic connection, the two knives had already started to release their power before the two of them got close. Wong. The two knives seemed to have sensed that someone had ill intentions towards them. They made two sounds again. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan, who were closer, immediately felt a piercing chill in their hearts. What followed was a heart-palpitating aura of death. It was dense and oppressive, making them unable to resist and unable to get rid of it. The two of them were shocked. Only then did they realize that their earth energy protection couldn't withstand it. Yan Zhuixing, who was standing at the gate, was paying attention to the field. Just as the two knives made a sound, his pupils suddenly shrank. His eyes turned blood red in an instant and then disappeared. Everyone's attention was focused on the field. No one noticed the abnormality in his eyes. Yan Zhuixing inadvertently discovered that the two blades actually glowed with an indistinct shadow. Like a wisp of smoke, it curled up and spread out, enveloping a radius of nearly 10 meters. It didn't disperse for a long time, and just happened to include Dongfang Changgao and Qiu Wuyuan within it. What surprised him the most was that he could feel an endless aura of death in the smoke-like shadow with just his eyes. After his demonic body was formed, although he hadn't officially cultivated the great skills in the demonic book, his demonic eye had already formed along with his demonic body. The smoke-like shadow seemed to be his demonic eye's archenemy. The moment it appeared, it stimulated his demonic eye and caused it to show itself. Then he forcefully suppressed it. Yan Zhuixing didn't understand why this happened. He squinted his eyes slightly. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan didn't dare to hesitate. Otherwise, if the time was up, they would have given another 10 million to Yu Qianqiu for nothing. The two of them looked at each other. Almost at the same time, they suppressed the spherical earth energy protection on their bodies. It was as if they were wearing a glowing coat. In a flash, they appeared in front of the knives. With their strong willpower, they bit their tongues to resist the dizziness that would hit their nerves. 5 claws shrouded in earth energy reached out and grabbed the handle of the knives. The people from supporting Immortals Island and the 10,000 demons couldn't sit still anymore. One by one, they stood up and excitedly hoped that the two of them would succeed. The two of them actually wanted to use their speed to quickly pull the knives out. Naturally, Yu Qianqiu wouldn't let them do as they wished. Otherwise, if the knives were gone, where would he get the knives from? Moreover, once the knives were taken away, it would be too far away and out of his control. He would be exposed immediately. He was afraid that the person who got the knives would immediately be killed by the sudden appearance of the black fire. At that time, if his swindling business was exposed, it would be really inconvenient for him to come out and meet people. Just as the two of them stretched out their claws,
A thick black mist emerged from the blade with a whoosh. The protective vigor chi on their bodies immediately made a sizzling sound, almost directly breaking through their protective vigor chi. The two of them were shocked. At a glance, they could tell that this black fog was the same as the black demon that corroded Luo Qingtian's arm. Once it touched their bodies, it would be terrible. Frightened, they quickly retreated. The black fog curled up and spread in the air. The two knives became calm again, but everyone's eyes were focused on them. Many people from supporting Immortals Island and the 10,000 Demons side. They were so close to success, but they failed at the last moment. Was really a pity. Eldest senior brother, this knife can actually attack people on its own. This is impossible even for an ordinary spiritual treasure. Could it be that this knife is a high-grade spiritual treasure? The tall and thin man behind Manhu was shocked. It's very possible. Didn't they say that this item came from the Eastern Holy Land? Manhu said solemnly. The few of them suddenly became excited. Some people behind them suddenly snorted. The few of them just looked back coldly and didn't say anything. Their master was an expert in the late stage of the soul formation realm. He also had a few spiritual treasures, including a middle-grade one. The few of them had seen it before, but they had never seen a spiritual treasure that could attack automatically. They naturally put this item in the category of high-grade spiritual treasures. I didn't expect it. Eldest senior brother, we must find a way to get this treasure and offer it to master. Old Seven, who was beaten by purple dress, said excitedly. This knife is strange. Yan Zhuixing turned around and pointed at his eyes. The few of them understood that he already had the devil eye and could see things that others couldn't. However, Yan Zhuixing's cultivation wasn't at the stage where he could use voice transmission, so it wasn't convenient for him to ask in detail. Manhu nodded solemnly and said, spiritual treasures naturally have their own peculiarities. Otherwise they wouldn't be called spiritual treasures. Then he asked the few junior brothers, it seems that they won't be able to get this treasure. It's our turn to send people. Who's going? Chapter 375. I'll go, the lanky second brother said. Be careful. If you can't do it, come back. Don't force it. Manhu nodded and instructed. In the field, Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan had already retracted their aura shield. Although the time was not up yet, the two of them felt that there was nothing they could do. If they forced themselves to draw the saber, they might even lose their lives. Each of them sighed and returned to their own tents in their own sections. On the stage, Yu Qianshou was trustworthy. He held the gong of alarm and stared at the hourglass below until it was completely empty. Only then did he ring the bell to announce the end of the competition. On the other side, the lanky second brother had already slowly entered the field. Yu Qianshou asked loudly, this round is short of one person. Who wants to go? He asked several times but no one answered. From everyone's expression, it was obvious that no one wanted to go with Yan Zhuixing's people. Yu Qianshou suddenly felt a little depressed. However, he had no way to force others to go, so he could only announce the start of the competition. The second brother looked around with a trace of disdain on his face. However, he was immediately shocked by the bone-piercing chill coming from the saber. He did not dare to underestimate it and also released his aura shield. However, the aura shield could not stop the aura of death. The second brother immediately felt himself entangled in endless despair. His spirit became illusory, and he wanted to give up this meaningless resistance. His whole body was also swaying. Not good. There's something wrong with the second brother. The senior and junior brothers were shocked. Second brother? Manhu saw that the situation was not right. He immediately shouted like a bolt from the blue. The second brother, who was immersed in the illusion, trembled and woke up. He thought, that was close. I was too careless. He steeled his mind and immediately walked toward the saber. With his cultivation, he was naturally much stronger than Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan in resisting the pressure coming from the saber. At this moment, Yu Qianshou, who was on the stage, shouted, the rules of the sword drawing competition have already been posted outside. Outsiders are not allowed to help in the sword drawing competition. If anyone dares to interfere, they will be declared a failure in accordance with the rules. Manhu immediately cupped his hands and apologized. I'm sorry, I came in a hurry and didn't have time to look carefully, please forgive me. Then he turned around and shouted, Old Seven, go and find the rules of the convention posted outside. Since they were able to come here, they were naturally aware of the rules of the competition. But it was a pity that the second brother had been too careless earlier, and as the eldest senior brother, Man Who naturally couldn't help but remind him. Old Seven understood that eldest senior brother was looking for an excuse to step down, but when he turned around he found that no one behind him made way for him, so he could only teleport out. Second brother also heard these words. He knew that eldest senior brother had lost face in front of so many people because of him. His heart was filled with gratitude and he hardened his heart to pull the knife back. But as soon as he approached the knife, he also encountered the black demon that Dongfang Chang'eo and Qiu Wuyuan had encountered before. The transparent protective aura shield flickered under the erosion of the black demon. Second brother was shocked. He didn't expect the black demon to be so powerful. No wonder the two people before retreated as soon as they encountered it. Man Hu and the others naturally saw that this was a sign of rapid consumption of Jinqi, and their hearts were in their throats. But this time, Man Hu learned his lesson and no longer shouted loudly. Instead, he transmitted his voice. Second brother, if you can't do it, come back, don't force yourself. Second brother silently shook his head. He had made up his mind to pull out the knife. The experienced people of the various sects also saw that someone might be transmitting his voice to remind him of something. But this was a matter without evidence, and they couldn't say anything if they couldn't find any evidence. Relying on the profound cultivation of the final stage of the crossing tribulation, second brother's protective aura shield almost condensed into a solid form. It was as if he was wearing a glowing glove, and he unexpectedly grabbed the handle of the knife against the black demon. Yu Qianzhou's pupils shrank slightly, but he found that someone was staring at him instead of pulling out the knife. When he met that person's gaze, he saw that it was Yan Zhuixing who was staring at him. Yu Qianzhou smiled and nodded, but he snorted coldly in his heart. Wanting to pull out the knife like this is too easy. You're forcing me to kill you. Seeing that the knife was about to be pulled out by second brother, the faces of the various sects changed. If this was really the case, then the Chinese cultivation world would lose a lot of face. Although the other party's cultivation was at the final stage of the crossing tribulation, so many people couldn't fight against one person. Moreover, this was in their own territory. Wouldn't it be shameful? Especially the people of Fuxian Island and the 10,000 demons, the leaders of the righteous and demonic sections. Their expressions were even more unsightly. They all regretted that they didn't let the consecrators of their sects personally take action. Just as second brother grabbed the knife handle, a raging black flame suddenly appeared on the body of the knife. In an instant, his entire body was wrapped inside, and the protective aura shield on his body was easily destroyed in an instant. Second brother, come back. Man Hu and the others no longer cared about the rules and shouted in alarm. Ah! Almost at the same time as they shouted, second brother had already flashed out of the black flame with a teleportation, but he still held his head and let out a mournful scream. For a cultivator at the final stage of the crossing tribulation to let out such a miserable scream, one could imagine the pain he was suffering. The people of the various sects all shivered in fear. Although second brother had flashed out of the black flame, he was like a piece of burning wood. The black flame stuck to his body and burned, and he couldn't get rid of it at all. Man Hu and the others flashed over, but they immediately didn't dare to get close to the terrifying power of the black flame. They could only shout and scream from afar as if they had gone crazy. The eyes of the senior and junior brothers were bloodshot as they watched second brother's skin and flesh disappear in the blink of an eye, turning into a skeleton. The skeleton swayed, and in the end even the skeleton collapsed and scattered on the ground. The black flame gradually died out, and a gust of wind blew past, and the scattered bones on the ground immediately withered and turned into flying ashes. The senior and junior brothers were dumbfounded as they looked at second brother's disappearing body. The people of the various sects were dumbfounded as they looked at the two knives. With such power, who could pull them out? Especially Dongfang Chang'eo and Qiu Wuyuan, the two of them were extremely glad that they had retreated when they saw Black Fiend. If they had really grabbed the knife handle and activated the black flame, they were afraid that they would end up like this person in front of them. The two of them looked at each other silently across the stage. It's over. When Yu Qianzhou saw everyone's expression, he suddenly came to a realization and sighed in his heart. With such a commotion, who would dare to pull out the knives? No one would spend money to throw away their lives. The raging black flame on the knives gradually subsided, and they silently stood there as calm as before. But at this moment, everyone could only use two words to describe these two knives. Peerless murder weapons. Man Hu and his junior brothers were now left with 6 people, and they didn't even have the chance to collect second brother's corpse. 6 ferociously stared at Yu Qianzhou on the stage. The atmosphere was not good. Although in everyone's eyes Yu Qianzhou's character wasn't very good,
He had just killed a foreign tribulation-passing realm expert, and gained face for the Chinese cultivation world. At this moment, everyone stood up with a hua sound and coldly stared at Man Hu and the others, supporting Yu Qianzhou. The 6 clan elders of the 4 great clans also brazenly appeared on the stage, and stood on either side of Yu Qianzhou. Man Hu glanced at the 6 elders, and found that they were all at the late tribulation-passing realm. His eyes flickered. It wasn't that Man Hu was afraid of the 6 of them, but because of Ziyi who was standing beside Yu Qianzhou, he had some misgivings. Otherwise, with their cultivation, they would have dared to cause trouble wherever they went. Wu Sihai was speechless. Wherever this brat went, something would happen. They couldn't even guard against him, he was a jinx. Yu Qianzhou cupped his hands towards Man Hu and the others and said, "I deeply sympathize with what happened to my fellow disciples, but the saber-drawing assembly has a rule. If any accidents occur, I will not be responsible." After saying that, he looked around and said, "The next round will continue, that person who is interested can come up and pay spirit stones." Again, who will come? It's more like courting death. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Yu Qianzhou. They didn't expect him to be greedy to this extent. In fact, Yu Qianzhou didn't have any hope, he was just saying it. What if there were people who wanted treasures more than their lives? Now that he had only obtained 60 million, he was a bit unwilling. Saying what if, there really was what if. At this moment, Yan Zhuixing slowly stepped forward and said, "Let me try." As he said that, he threw a storage pouch onto the stage. Yu Qianzhou caught the storage pouch and was stunned. Everyone looked at Yan Zhuixing. At this moment, everyone realized that Yan Zhuixing, who was originally at the core formation stage, was now at the middle stage of the nascent soul stage. It had only been a few short years. However, a mocking expression appeared in everyone's eyes. Even someone at the late stage of the passing tribulation couldn't withstand it. Wasn't a nascent soul stage courting death? Man Hu stepped forward and stopped him and said solemnly, "Young Hall Master, we appreciate your kind intentions, but please don't be impulsive." He thought that Yan Zhuixing couldn't swallow his anger because of his second brother's death. However, he didn't know that ever since Yan Zhuixing's demonic eyes were stimulated by the 2 sabers, he had a strong obsession in his heart. He wanted to compete with the 2 sabers, and the aura of death that made everyone's heart palpitate made him unable to suppress his passion. Yan Zhuixing said to Man Hu, "State Preceptor, don't worry. I know what I'm doing." Man Hu and the others looked at each other. They didn't know where Yan Zhuixing's confidence came from, but they also knew that Yan Zhuixing had a strong sense of autonomy. Once he decided on something, no one could change his mind. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to form the demonic body. *CK. My enemy. I can't wait for it. This is a good opportunity to kill you so that there won't be any trouble in the future. Yu Qianzhou didn't even look at the contents of the storage pouch and directly stuffed it into his own storage pouch. He waved at Wu Liqing below and said, "Begin, begin." He was anxious to kill Yan Zhuixing. He could ignore the enmity between the 2 of them, but Yan Zhuixing wouldn't. Yan Zhuixing looked around and his eyes met with Yu Qianzhou again. The latter smiled and made a pleased gesture to him. Yan Zhuixing nodded and no expression could be seen on his face. He directly walked towards one of the sabers. Before he got close, a bone-piercing chill suddenly attacked him. Yan Zhuixing stopped, closed his eyes and opened his arms to welcome the aura of death that followed closely. Indifference, ruthlessness, sternness, despair, and a series of extremely negative auras mixed together to form the aura of death. Yan Zhuixing slowly opened his eyes and turned to look at Yu Qianzhou. There was actually a smile on his face. However, Yu Qianzhou's expression changed. He could feel that the pressure released by the black fire not only had no effect on Yan Zhuixing, but it was all absorbed by Yan Zhuixing's body. Chapter 376. Those who had not personally experienced it might not know how powerful it was, but Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Weiyuan were shocked. Even with their cultivation, it was difficult for them to withstand such pressure, but Yan Zhuixing seemed to be completely fine. Although they had not personally experienced it, they also felt that something was wrong. Only now did Yan Zhuixing understand that his devil body could actually restrain the death aura emitted from the blade. After absorbing it into his body, his devil body showed faint signs of strengthening, which really surprised him. No wonder he had the urge to try it out. It seemed that these 2 blades were very suitable for him. Yan Zhuixing's gaze lingered on the 2 blades. Suddenly, he remembered that he had limited time and could not delay any longer, otherwise he would be cheated of spirit stones by that guy again. He walked to the front of the blades with ease. Just as he stretched out his hand, the black aura suddenly erupted from the blade, instantly submerging it in thick black smoke. There were no screams as everyone had imagined. Many people, including Yu Qianqiu, were a little disappointed. Surprisingly, the black aura that was as dense as a thick cloud gradually faded. When it faded a little more, the group of people were stunned when they saw the situation inside. They saw that Yan Zhuixing seemed to be enjoying it very much, like a whale drinking water, absorbing the black aura in big mouthfuls. Man Hu and the others also looked at each other. They knew that Yan Zhuixing had already formed the devil body, but they did not expect the devil body to have such power. In the future, if he really succeeded in cultivating the great technique of the devil book, how terrifying would that be? Yu Qianqiu felt a toothache watching this. You actually used my black aura as oxygen, damn. You have guts. Yan Zhuixing was so comfortable that he almost moaned. The black aura was more beneficial to the devil body than the death aura. He closed his eyes and was enjoying it, when he suddenly had a premonition that a terrible power was about to be released from the blade. Before he could react, there seemed to be some kind of power bursting out of his body. Yan Zhuixing believed that his devil body would not harm him, so he let it freely release. Before Yan Zhuixing could touch the blade, the surging black fire instantly erupted from the blade, and at that moment, a circle of black light appeared around Yan Zhuixing's body at the same time. The black fire that showed unparalleled power just now was actually unable to break through the black light. When the group saw this, they all gasped in disbelief. Yu Qianqiu's face twitched even more. He did not expect Black Flame to have a nemesis, and the person who could restrain Black Flame was actually his enemy. What the hell? The black fire trapped the black light, while the black light protected Yan Zhuixing. The black fire and the black light neutralized each other. Just as they suppressed each other, they bounced up again. Yan Zhuixing, on the other hand, stood there with a cold face. His whole person looked evil and awe-inspiring. He glanced at the audience indifferently, as if the suppression of the black fire and black light had nothing to do with him. Anyone who came into contact with his eyes would subconsciously shiver in their hearts. No emotion could be seen in those eyes, and they were icy cold and indifferent to the extreme. It was as if he viewed all living beings as ants. That pair of cold eyes finally met with Yu Qianqiu's eyes. Yu Qianqiu's heart was pounding, but he still maintained a friendly smile on his face. Maybe Yu Qianqiu's smile moved Yan Zhuixing, but it was not the time to draw the blade yet. Yan Zhuixing silently turned around and walked out of the black fire. The evil and awe-inspiring black light also gradually retracted into his body. Oh my god. Is that still a human's gaze? After Yu Qianqiu got rid of Yan Zhuixing's gaze, he secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He thought to himself, this guy's evil aura is too heavy to actually be able to restrain my trump card. It seems like it's better not to provoke him for now. The people from the other sects were a little shocked. Yan Zhuixing was clearly fine, so why did he not want the treasure blade that was within his reach? Even Man Hu and the rest felt that it was a little strange. They looked at Yan Zhuixing, who was walking back with a questioning gaze. The latter said indifferently, let's go back. Go back now. Wouldn't second senior brother's death be in vain? Old Seven's gaze was still fixed on the blade. Yan Zhuixing shook his head slightly at Man Hu. Man Hu did not say much and shouted to the few people, listen to young Palace Lord, go back. As he spoke, he immediately released his flying artifact. After the few people jumped on it, they soared into the sky. Just like that, not only did one person die, but they also lost 30 million upper-grade spirit stones. They came and left in a hurry, causing the people from the other sects to be a little puzzled. So, this business probably wouldn't be able to continue. Yu Qianqiu looked around the stage and shouted, is there anyone else trying? After shouting a few times, there was no response, so he added, after 2 hours, if there is no one else trying, I will personally take back the 2 blades and end this saber-drawing conference. This was the last trace of hope that he was holding on to. Even Zi was looking around, hoping that someone would come out and pay. However, before 2 hours were up, the sects started to leave. With one sect taking the lead, the other sects also left one after another. There was no other way. Although the blades were good, they could not take them away. Many of the people who originally wanted to take advantage of Yu Qianqiu being alone to snatch the saber gave up on this idea. This saber could actively attack people. Even if they killed Yu Qianqiu, they still wouldn't be able to take the saber away. Almost all the sects had left. Only Fuxian Island, 10,000 Demons and Moon Clan, which were closer to the front, did not leave. Yu Qianqiu swore some vulgarities that others could not hear clearly. He tore off the big red flower and the red cloth on his body. After seeing the 3 sects he was slightly stunned. Fuxian Island and 10,000 demons still had a reason to stay. What were the women from Moon Clan doing here? Did they admire me so much? Earning 70 million in a day was also worth admiring? Bullsh*T. He jumped off the stage and took back the 2 blades that he used to trick people. He called Ziyi and Wu Lixue and left. The Wu clan would naturally arrange for people to clean up the mess. Yu Qianshou. 2 old men's voices and a woman's voice called out at the same time. Were they really looking for me? Yu Qianshou stopped and turned around. He asked confusedly, "Seniors, why are you looking for me?" Needless to say, Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan were acquaintances. The woman from Moon Clan was called Hua Rui. Although he was not familiar with her, he knew her. When he went to the demon region to train, she was the leader of Moon Clan. After the 3 shouted, they looked at each other. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan had been entangled for many years. They could almost read each other's minds. They knew what each other wanted to do with just one look. The 2 old men looked at Hua Rui suspiciously. They really could not figure out what she wanted to do. The 3 first cupped their hands at the people from the 4 clans on the stage. Then they led their disciples and walked toward Yu Qianshou. Yu Qianshou and Wu Lixue greeted them. Ziyi, on the other hand, stood there without moving. Indeed, with her cultivation and background, she did not need these people at all. The people from the 3 clans surrounded the 3 of them, but they did not say anything. Yu Qianshou looked left and right. He did not understand what the 3 of them wanted. He thought to himself, are they going to let me do something because I made some money? With the wealth of these 3 clans, they did not need to collect protection fees. In the end, it was Qiu Wuyuan who said cheerfully, "Brother Yu, I would like to invite you to 10,000 demons as a guest. Would you like to do me the honor?" "Ah, Senior Qiu, you are too polite." Yu Qianshou replied, but he immediately thought of what Qiu Wuyuan said about buying a knife. It probably had something to do with this. Just as he did not know how to reject, he suddenly saw Hua Rui staring at Ziyi. He quickly took the opportunity to ask Qiu Wuyuan, "Senior Hua, do you know Ziyi?" Qiu Wuyuan's face twitched and he cursed the little fox in his heart. Hua Rui came back to her senses and smiled. "No, I don't." Her eyes were still staring at Ziyi from time to time. "Senior Hua, why are you looking for me?" Yu Qianshou was confused. Nothing. As soon as Hua Rui said that, she stunned herself. Why did she stop him for no reason? She immediately changed her words and said, "Nothing important. On behalf of the Moon Clan, I would like to invite you to visit the Moon Clan." As soon as she said that, Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan were both stunned. The Moon Clan was made up of women and they never invited men casually. Even if they did invite men occasionally, they would only invite people of high moral standing in the cultivation world. Why would they invite someone with bad character like Yu Qianshou? The 2 of them looked at each other and thought to themselves, something's wrong. Yu Qianshou naturally would not suspect that he was a bad person. However, he had also heard that the Moon Clan was not a place where men could go casually. He was stunned and said, Yu Qianshou would not dare to reject Senior Hua's invitation. However, Yu Qianshou is a man. It might be inconvenient for me to go. Bring your female companion with you. Of course there won't be a problem. Hua Rui smiled and pointed at Ziyi. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan were suddenly enlightened. It turned out that the person the Moon Clan invited wasn't Yu Qianshou, but this mysterious woman. However, they were not familiar with this woman, so they used Yu Qianshou as an excuse. Yu Qianshou understood what she meant. It seemed that she was targeting Ziyi. He couldn't help but look at Ziyi a few more times. However, Ziyi stared at Hua Rui and said, "We can go. How many spiritual stones can you take out?" Everyone instantly fell silent. Very quiet, Yu Qianshou's face twitched again and again. This girl is even more shameless than me. Someone invited you as a guest and you want them to pay? This logic was unprecedented. He was also struck speechless by the lightning. How many spiritual stones do you need? Hua Rui asked with a stiff face. Is 20 million enough? Ziyi asked Yu Qianshou. Yu Qianshou opened his mouth wide. He felt a little dazed and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Sister. Even if you want to get money, you have to look at the occasion. Even if you want to embarrass yourself, you don't have to do it like this. Even if you want to, don't do it now. He didn't speak and Ziyi thought he agreed. She turned around and said, 20 million. She didn't forget to add to Hua Rui, 20 million top-grade spiritual stones. Yu Qianshou couldn't afford to be embarrassed. He was afraid that she would say something else. He hurriedly bowed to Dongfang Chang'ao and said, Senior Dongfang, why are you looking for me? Dongfang Chang'eo, who was staring at Zi in a daze, came back to his senses. His expression became solemn again. He said, "Yu Qinshu, follow me back to supporting Xian Island. I have something to discuss with you." Yu Qinshu had a faint smile on his face. "I'm no longer a disciple of supporting Xian Island. Why are you still talking to me like this? It's as if I have to go." He immediately shook his head and said, "Let's discuss it here. There's no need to go to supporting Xian Island." "Yu Qinshu, what's wrong with supporting Xian Island? Why are you avoiding it like this?" Osihai came out from behind and shouted. Logically speaking, Dongfang Chang'eo was still under his control. However, when it came to handling outside matters, Dongfang Chang'eo was better at it. Therefore he didn't say anything. But now, he couldn't help it because he was one of the people who wanted to recall Yu Qinshu back to supporting Xian Island. Yu Qinshu shook his head and didn't say anything. Osihai snorted coldly, waved his hand and walked away. Dongfang Chang'eo frowned and said, "Yu Qinshu, Anjiu asked me to find you. She wants you to go back to supporting Xian Island. Are you going?" Yu Qinshu still shook his head and said, "Senior Dongfang, please send my regards to Anjiu. If there's a chance, I'll definitely pay her a visit." Dongfang Chang'eo let out a deep breath and said, "Anjiu asked me to ask you if you still remember a promise you made in the past. If you remember, you have to go back to supporting Xian Island. Anjiu wants you to fulfill your promise." You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.